What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
5 id. Chapter 101. Advertise here. Letterfield smiled at Luo Yi, before I got the power. Whoosh. After speaking, his body flashed, and instantly he came to Robin on the table, and the bat-shaped umbrella pierced through. I don't want the world and Marine to know the news of my reappearance. At that speed, Robin couldn't react at all, maintaining his coffee-drinking shape, frozen in there. At that moment, Momosugi kicked the back of the chair below her, and when the bat umbrella was approaching, Robin fell down because of lack of support. Letterfield smiled slightly, and the bat umbrella that he swung out suddenly moved down and slashed towards Robin. When an armed black knife entwined on top of the bat umbrella, immediately igniting a wave of air in the air, appearing to swing open in a circular shape. Luo Yi appeared opposite Letterfield with a gloomy face and smiled and said, "Hey, old guy, what do you want to do? Nice knife, is it yours?" Letterfield's umbrella was painted with a touch of armed color, and he was entangled with Qiandao, and the two sides wrestled, making a click sound. At this moment, he suddenly moved his hand up, and the bat umbrella slid smoothly from the 1,000 blades of the magic sword. When his wrist turned over, the bat umbrella was rotated on the palm of his hand and moved straight to Luo Yi's head. Stabbed. Don't die, old man. However, this sword only pierced an afterimage. Luo Yi's body rippled like water waves, and a cold voice sounded from behind Letterfield. The 1,000 blades of the magic knife turned into black light, and slashed it over. Letterfield smiled slightly, and at the moment when the magic knife was cut by 1,000 blades, his body disappeared in a flash, appeared on the ground, and applauded. The speed is good, it can actually keep up with me. He can't fly. So many movements just now were done while in the air, which shows how fast it is. The old guy should leave. Luo Yi missed the knife and raised the knife to Letterfield and said, "Forcibly come out and move, twist your waist carefully. God avoid." The black and red slashes were entwined with red lightning and quickly slashed towards Letterfield. From Luo Yi's swing to the slash was so smooth that people couldn't react. This slash. Letterfield looked at the slash that had hit him, and said, "I miss it very much, Rogers." He squeezed the bat umbrella tightly and waved upwards heavily, and a semicircular wave of slashing blows from the umbrella, sweeping towards the slashing from in front of him. Boom. The ripple slash was easily slashed by God avoiding. Letterfield erected the bat umbrella in front of him, with a blood-red cloak flying backwards behind him, and with a jump, he quickly jumped up to avoid God's refuge. Oh, is such a powerful slash deceiving me to be old? Letterfield slashed at Luo Yi in the air, and landed on the ground. He saw the gods flying over again, and smiled slightly. "You are very strange, you are obviously strong, but you don't want to follow me with all your strength. If you fight, then I will persecute you first." With that, he looked at Robin who was sitting on the ground, his body moved and he was about to rush over. Suddenly, Luo Yi flashed around and rushed to Letterfield. When the black knife and the bat umbrella were handed over, inciting a wave of air, the magic knife 1,000 blades turned into fragments and slashed towards Letterfield. Letterfield used the sight and experience to know that it flashed past. After a stab, Luo Yi disappeared and appeared behind Letterfield. The 1,000-edged fragments of the magic knife floated up and turned into 100 knives, and they slashed over. Yi 100 shadows slash. Good speed. Letterfield turned around when Luo Yi disappeared, and the bat umbrella in his hand also turned into an afterimage, hitting the 100 slashes in an instant. Dang dang. A series of gas explosion impacts swayed in the center of the two, and the ground smoke from the explosion rolled, enveloping them. Both sides had no distractions, staring at each other. One face was plain, the other smiled evilly. It seemed that the old guy was enjoying the battle very much. Momosugi hurriedly took Robin away from the battlefield. She could watch the battle by herself, but Robin was a burden now. In the smoke and dust, Luo Yi and Letterfield continued to wield weapons there. The speeds on both sides are the same, and Letterfield's sword is even faster than Luo Yi. Although in the eyes of other people, it was completely invisible, only to see shock waves exploding between the two. But in Luo Yi's eyes, the old guy's swing speed is not slow. But to say fast, it is actually not as fast as Luo Yi, but his powerful experience and beauty give him the power of foresight. When Luo Yi moved his wrist, he would swing his sword to block it, as if he was half a beat slower than him. At this time, both sides are using armament hockey, and his emission hockey is stronger than him. After each collision, the old guy's hand trembles and it slows down a bit, causing both sides to be evenly matched. But at this moment, Letterfield was a little dazed. Boom. Luo Yi put a knife on Letterfield's bat umbrella, igniting a wave of air, and the huge force caused a round of smoke to burst out of the soles of the old man's feet. "Old guy, be careful of being chopped," Luo Yi said with a lightly thrown the magic knife Chinbian. Letterfield touched the broken clothes on his chest, and armament hockey slowly disappeared inside. "When you get old, you will cherish the memory of the past." Letterfield smiled evilly. "I have been outstanding since I was a child, and I will not be weaker than the one-on-one in the battle. But now I have to be surprised to see someone with such a strength like you. There are still such monsters in the sea that surpass Roger and others." Quote. "But because of this, I am afraid of getting old. If I am still young, I will not be easily cut by you. Only by regaining my youth can I claim the highest throne. Letterfield rushed up again, and the bat umbrella collided with the magic knife Thousand Blades. Letterfield's arm exploded with force, and Luo Yi's knife was swung away in an instant. With his fingers flipped, he held the front end of the umbrella handle and pushed forward, and the tip pierced Luo Yi directly. At the same time, Luo Yi's smashed magic knife Thousand Blades went down again and swung his head and face down. Bang! The two retreated separately. Luo Yi slid on the ground for half a meter and then stopped, while Letterfield slid for tens of meters. Oh, the power is so powerful. Why did Marine let a guy like you leave? Aren't you still Garp's son? Marine is really funny. Letterfield glanced at the cut clothes. The blood-red cloak was skewed to one side, and there was another cut in his shoulder. A touch of armed color was slowly fading, and the blood slowly flowed out as the armed color faded. The old guy has been in jail for a long time, and he can't even tell the 147th world. When people are old, they should be obediently old and run out to join in the fun. Luo Yi's clothes were not torn. He stared at Letterfield and slowly said, I have no interest in killing an old guy like you who won't live long, but you don't seem to want to let me go. Nature. Letterfield smiled. Although you look tricky, if you kill you here, my aura will reach another level. Yes. The black and red hockey on the Thousand Blades of the magic knife in Luo Yi's hand was floating. The powerful and large amount of hockey made the Thousand Blades of the magic knife thicker a few times. Letterfield was surprised. As the amount of hockey so sufficient? Little devil, or just bluff? You'll know if you try. Luo Yi backhanded the magic knife Thousand Blades into the sheath, and stared at him closely. Elderly people who come out for activities regardless of time and occasion, it is very likely that they will die suddenly. Whoosh. His figure was rippling away like water, and he appeared behind Letterfield in the next moment. The blade was drawn in a flash, divided into 5, surrounded him with no dead ends. This is. At the moment Luo Yi appeared, Letterfield moved. His sights captured the actions of the little devil in the suit, and he was about to fight back. But these 5 slashes full of hockey attacked together, but his pupils shrank. Can't avoid it. In any direction, he is surrounded by these 5 knives. But the flaw lies in the person who has the knife. Letterfield pierced Luo's neck, and the tip of the bat umbrella swept a purple hockey vortex. If you can't hide, just pierce it straight. Chapter 102. Advertise here. Conqueror's hockey. Luo Yi's eyes condensed, and the speed of the knife did not decrease but increased. Conquerors formed lightning and wrapped around the Thousand Blades of the magic knife. At this moment, the armament hockey at the throat became more solid. The blade slashed on Letterfield's body. The bat umbrella also stabbed Luo Yi in the throat at this moment. Bang! The two separated again, and Letterfield snorted. This time he retreated hundreds of meters. The clothes on his shoulders, waist ribs, and chest were torn apart. Even if there were armed blessings in those 5 directions, they were still cut open. After the opening, the flesh and blood rolled. At the same time, his clothes seemed to have been slashed by a thin blade, with countless more openings, splitting his body. Just for a moment, the gentleman's shape looks tattered. And Luo Yi just leaned back. There was a red spot in his throat. He twisted his neck. His face was a bit heavy. His strength was dissipated a lot by this blow, hitting his throat directly. Even if he was not afraid, he instinctively withdrew a lot of strength. This old guy is worthy of being an old guy. He has been fighting for so many years and is very experienced. However, the current self is not comparable to the incomplete self back then. What is this strange force? Letterfield looked at the small wounds that appeared on his body and frowned. Can hockey reach such strength? No. Is it your knife? Letterfield looked at the cracked magic knife Thousand Blades in Luo Yi's hand. It's uncomfortable. Luo Yi sneered. His recent research on the splitting attacks brought by the magic sword Shinbian was not a study in vain. His hockey can now bring a bit of splitting power. Through the form of external release, combined with the proliferation nature of the magic knife Thousand Blades, others will be hurt by its strength. The so-called outer ring scratch. No, anyway, hitting me is equal to hitting yourself. God avoid. Luo Yi stretched out his left hand and quickly slashed out with a knife in his right hand. The black and red slash that had been avoided by Letterfield before appeared again. All said, this trick is useless. Roger himself didn't dare to be so careless to me back then. Letterfield held the bat umbrella and was about to slash and dodge again to avoid Luo Yi's slash when he suddenly stopped. Looking down, I saw that my ankles were bound by ice that I didn't know where it came from. I'm a little bit more than Roger knows. Quote exclamation mark quote. Luo Yi's voice quickly came to Letterfield from far to near. The magic knife Chinblade didn't know when it was sheathed. At this time, he pulled it out again and cut it into a straight black glow. Splitting void. The Thousand Blades of magic knife twined armament hockey for a flash. IHE. With a move of Letterfield's ankle, he broke the shackles of the ice, and his body turned into an afterimage and retreated, avoiding this extremely fast slash. Tisk. Sage Pirates. Luo Yi waved with one hand, and a wave of cold icicles was triggered along the way, and it rushed forward. The cold air in the air formed a huge ice bird flying towards Letterfield. Boom. The icicle wave was quickly broken open, and I saw that Letterfield was jumping back and forth in the space like a teleport, and suddenly jumped to the sky. After breaking through the huge ice bird with a sword, it teleported away again in the space. Go. Don't let Luo Yi catch it. Luo Yi's eyes kept shifting, staring at the blinking figure. Let me not catch it. This old stuff. Letterfield hockey, swordsmanship. Maybe the armed color is not as overbearing as Kaido, but he sees the color as a monster. Although Luo Yi can foresee the future, he can also do it. Then, plus the sight and color that can read people's hearts, if Luo Yi doesn't calm down and wants to capture Letterfield, it's a little more complicated than dealing with other people. Luo Yi held the magic knife with 1,000 blades and turned sideways. The blade that was swung back turned into a blade forward. The fingers of his other hand moved slightly, and the ice cubes that had been broken in the air fell one after another, forming a semicircular barrier in front. Sage pirates. The blade was swung out, and a gust of wind was swept away into the barrier, and the barrier was turned into many small pieces of ice, which were cut out along with the sword wind. Chi 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 chi. Densely small cutting marks appeared on the ground immediately, and as the squally wind swept, they kept advancing towards the shimmering afterimage. I see how you hide. This is really. Letterfield stopped flashing. The bat umbrella swept away the purple air, and a group of all-round slashes enveloping him spread from him, the slashing and the wind intertwined, making a jingle. This kid is really tricky. But at this level. The wind was still rolling, and Letterfield stretched out his hand, and the bat umbrella stood in front of his face, posing as a knight holding a sword. Not enough, kid. Hey, interesting. Somehow, Luo Yi saw the posture of Letterfield. All of a sudden, his hairs stood up, but Luo Yi didn't panic at all, just smiled happily. If you are not careful, you will get hurt, but only in this way is interesting. Sudden. Whoosh. The figure wore a cloak and turned into a blood-red light. It broke through the wind and waves in the madness and rushed towards Luo Yi at a very fast speed. On the tip of the umbrella, Haki had already condensed a little, and a purple glow appeared. A little break. Yi flurry. Countless black and red slashes slashed towards the red light. After piercing dozens of slashes, Letterfield was forced to stop. Letterfield's figure flashed straight, just like walking in a leisurely garden. When the slash came, it turned into an afterimage, flashed away, letting the slash cut into the air, hundreds of times in a row, only a few of them touched the body. Suffered minor injuries. Luo Yi frowned. The old guy's sight was too strong, he hid, and he just avoided hundreds of slashes. Such a short distance. Letterfield's application of speed is not the same type of speed as Luo Yi. No, it is faster than him in dodge in a small area. This is more than just seeing and hearing color intensity. Just rely on this speed. No wonder it was comparable to Roger and Whitebeard. No wonder that one person could be compared to Roger and Whitebeard. Luo Yi's brief loss of consciousness caused Letterfield to read his thoughts. His bat umbrella, from Lee's pierced and pointed towards Luo Yi, which was held by him with a knife. The 5 fingers of the other hand clenched tightly, the black giant the dragon threw out his fist. Not. Bang. I saw Letterfield's figure flashed, and quickly dodged the black dragon, flashed to the back, and said lightly, I can't match them, I've never been. I can't trust the so-called companions like them, and I don't believe that others will approach me without reporting the destination, so I can't compare to them. Ugly. Too ugly. Letterfield's face darkened. This world is so ugly, no one is qualified to get the throne at the end of the ocean, but in this world, the throne is not allowed to be empty, so let me do it. I will replace the dead Roger and the failed Whitebeard and become the ultimate king. Quote. Recovering youth, Kun is facing the sea and becoming the strongest in the world. Only in this way, you ugly fellows can see the situation clearly and know that the sea is not a game that you despicable people can participate in casually. Go. Chapter 103. Advertise here. Ah, Luo Yi sneered and squeezed the 1,000 blades of magic knife tightly. Let's install lesson noble. No one is noble than anyone on the sea. If you just look down on people, you may suffer from it. Yes. Letterfield smiled. I haven't been to the undersea prison, but what about it? It's all lustful people. Whoosh. His figure flashed continuously, and he couldn't catch it at all in the space. This time, Letterfield used his real speed despite the prolonged explosion, and soon appeared beside Luo Yi, and the bat umbrella took Haki to the past. Dark Blade Storm. When Luo Yi reacted with this sword, it was already close, and he immediately shouted. When the bat umbrella stabbed, the 1,000 blades of the magic sword turned into fragments and spun and formed a storm that encircled itself, and a huge black tornado formed. A tornado formed by slashing. This umbrella hole fell into the tornado. Letterfield was taken aback for a while, retracting the bat umbrella, his figure dodges, and the cloak spread out behind him, like a spiral swirling around the tornado, breaking the tornado a little bit. However, this is of no use for the sword blade formation tornado. The tornado that was broken was quickly slashed and filled and rushed directly to Letterfield. Wasting you. Oh, the moves that can keep recovering, are you going to drain my energy? Letterfield squeezed the bat umbrella, and said in disgust. This body is too old, otherwise I will try to find out who is really strong. But now, it needs a little skill. He flashed another 150 times at high speed. This time he didn't entangle Luo Yi, but turned into a blood-red star, pushing towards Momosuke and Robin in the distance. Damn. Luo Yi immediately relieved the dark blade storm, 2 fingers and 1 blade, turning into a black-red light, God avoid. The slash carrying lightning quickly approached Letterfield's back. Evasion is a fast slash, and has a flying speed that surpasses most slashes. It is also a trick that is not easy to avoid. Laugh. Damn it. Letterfield jumped up and hid, and Momosuke used his sword to knock Luo Yi's slash. Kanzi Jian Luyu. Luo Yi's magic sword thousand blades lifted up, pointed at the sky, and in the air, a cloud of black sinking descended again. Wow. The big rain fell from the sky, and fell freely on this spacious battlefield that had been destroyed by the battle between the two. Rainwater. Letterfield stretched out his hand, caught a few raindrops, and was stunned. A drop of rain fell on Letterfield's shoulder, and a burst of blood surged. This is. Letterfield's pupils shrank, and he immediately waved the bat umbrella, rolling up a circular slash from himself, blocking the rain. It just didn't stop for a while, the slashing shield continued to disappear under the rain. My move is not so easy to block. Luo Yi said coldly. You micro-manipulation, I let you micro-manipulation, isn't it flashing fast, I make it rain all over the area, and see where you go. You kid, there are a lot of means. Letterfield glanced up at the falling rain, glanced at the bright sky above Momosuke and others. The figure was about to move, and saw an afterimage quickly approaching, flashing red and black electric magic knives. Thousand blades cut through, smashing Letterfield's slashing shield. Bang! Chu Shui and the bat umbrella handed over, sending out a shock wave. The slashing shield shattered under the impact and rain. How about it? Are you comfortable hitting you like this? Old guy. Luo Yi held the knife and pressed down, grinning at Letterfield. Boy. Letterfield also smirked, swung his arm forward, pushed Luo Yi's magic knife thousand blades away, his figure flashed, reached Luo Yi's side, and pierced it. When Luo Yi cut it with a backhand, staggered with the bat umbrella, and made a crisp sound in the rain, swaying a lot of raindrops. Dang dang. In the rainy night, a glowing black and red glow intertwined with a group of sharp purple air. Every time it hits, the air vibrates. The two-person centered ground cracks every inch, tearing open countless big holes, bang. Bang bang bang. One black and red and one purple, constantly surging in the heavy rain. The purple hockey with the light of the blood-red cloak actually wanted to escape, but was dragged by the interlaced black and red light, stupefied to prevent him from leaving this rainy place. Bang! Letterfield collided with Luo Yi again, with a cruel heart, and leaned forward, holding the knife that Luo Yi drew towards him. The tip of the bat umbrella swept away the purple hockey, and pointed to Luo Yi's heart. The slash brought by the rain can penetrate the body, and his current hockey volume cannot last that long. In Letterfield's view, young people like Luo Yi will be stunned when facing this kind of injury, so that he has a chance to escape the rain here. However, the scene he expected did not appear. Luo Yi watched the bat umbrella sting, his eyes turned red, and he held the bat umbrella hard, clenched the magic knife thousand blades, and swiped it down. Laugh. The magic sword thousand blades slashed at Letterfield's hockey, which was gradually weakened by the rain, and cut a big hole in Letterfield's chest again. Letterfield's bat umbrella hit Kuro's heart and cut it. The covered hockey made ripples. Cough. Both sides stepped back half a step. Luo Yi coughed, eyes stained with redness. Regardless of the pain in his heart, he stuck it up the moment he leaned back and slashed away. Bang! The bat umbrella was placed on the thousand blades of the magic knife, and Letterfield shook his body and gritted his teeth and said, You kid. The strange anti-injury force on Luo Yi's body just stabbed him a little bit hockey. He actually came up hard. Come. Luo Yi burst into words, aren't you going to fight me with all my strength? Luo Yi was beaten fiercely. If there is no way to solve it peacefully, and if you can't leave happily, then come. If you can't hide it anyway, if you hack someone to death, wouldn't it be resolved peacefully? You are too noble, Letterfield. Luo Yi slashed away, letting Letterfield's body shape wide open, his other hand fisted, hockey firmed up a bit, and punched it. I am high, but the force generated by the air burst caused Letterfield's armed head to skew. Although he was born with a plug-in, but in this sea, he showed a lot of peculiarities when he was young. He stepped backwards, his body was about to retreat, and Luo Yi pressed on again, the magic sword thousand blades danced wildly, smashing it like a splash of wind. Heavenly Yaksha Doflamingo, awakened conquerors when he was young. Embrace the ugliness, old man. Charlotte Linlin can defeat a giant hero at the age of 5. His eyes condensed. In addition to hockey attainments in swordsmanship, Luo Yi's hockey attainments in physical arts are not low. This punch can no longer be blocked. Letterfield twisted his footsteps to the left, past the terrifying airburst brought by the fist dangerously and dangerously. Including the old guy in front of me, Letterfield, who has been a kind of powerful and able to see through people's hearts since he was a child. This kid, what am I up to? Of course it's high. What's the difference? It makes no difference. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Luo Yi slashed with a knife, his eyes were red and said, Look down on this, look down on that, above the sea, what are you? Everyone is just a large number of beings. Under this sky, no one is more noble than anyone. Quote. This is nothing to be proud of. Chapter 104. Advertise here. Luo Yi slashed Letterfield's bat umbrella and slashed it backwards. Letterfield's umbrella also hit Luo Yi's shoulder, smashing Luo Yi's covered hockey a little, but soon, the counter-shock force made him instantly stalemate. Laugh. The black knife with a trace of black and red light cut through Letterfield's hockey, pierced a big hole in his chest, and shot out blood. Letterfield covered his chest, spouted a mouthful of blood, took 2 steps backwards, and suddenly flashed. At this moment, I saw that Kullo also flashed in shape, using the same posture and speed as Letterfield. Even faster than he is now, appearing in front of Letterfield under a few afterimages in the space. Laugh. This knife cut through his chest again, and completely shattered Hockey's bodyguard. Letterfield snorted, flew back, and fell to the ground. You kid, have learned my speed. He raised his head, hard to talk. It's just a little bit of skills in other directions. What's hard to learn? I'm already specializing in speed. Luo Yi squeezed his 5 fingers and collected the rain. At the same time, a mass of water gathered and landed on Letterfield's face. Let's take a look. Old fellow, what's the difference between your appearance and the drowning dog? What kind of innocence are you talking about? He held the magic knife Thousand Blades, pointed at Letterfield and said. Letterfield looked at the water ball subconsciously, and the water ball clearly reflected his body, all in tatters, blood on the body, mixed with the mud on the ground, dirty, and it was not like the gentleman before. But the most important thing is his face, which is now hideous, and the distorted and embarrassed appearance that can't afford to lose or win as the biggest source. It's an older generation anyway, let's see the world clearly. Luo Yi yelled. Let's take a good look at the world around you. There are marines, pirates, soldiers, and clan forces in this world. Everyone is different. No one is born high above. There is birth, old age, sickness and death. Run for your own purpose. Anyway, it's just a goal, the same goal is no different in itself. Quote. Where are so many tall people? They are all people. The ugliness you think is the truth of this world. Listen carefully, the voice of these people. Letterfield subconsciously looked at the back of the mountain that lay in the middle of the battlefield, the people who were constantly evacuating and the Don Quixote gangsters who came to watch. The powerful sight and color made him feel their aspirations. Oh, Mom, I want to go home. These 2 monsters are terrifying. After surviving this time, I will never. I finally stopped. I can go back. My family is still waiting for me. It's lucky that I didn't die this time. The thoughts were mixed and passed into Letterfield's mind. There are those who are weak, some are brave, some are plain, and some are ready to go to death and generously give up righteously. They have different voices. Did you hear that? Luo Yi interrupted his thoughts and said, it is not practical to listen to, but you can also see the ideas from their looks. Each of them has their own goals and ideals. Maybe their future achievements are high and low, but ideals, there has never been. Hug them, embrace what you think is ugly. This world is perfect because of these ugly imperfections. Quote. Luo Yi looked at him directly and shouted. The ideal of being a stinky One Piece is the same as the ideal of being an ordinary citizen. Ideally, there is no distinction between high and low. One Piece. Letterfield stood up, and shouted at Luo Yi, that's not a stinky One Piece. That's the position Roger once boarded. It's the throne that all the pirates dream of. Marine, the dream of becoming an admiral is the same as the dream of a marshal. Luo Yi looked at him quietly and asked, so, what can be different? These words shocked Letterfield. Yes indeed, what can be different? Why would I say such a thing? Doesn't it amount to acknowledging the dream of Marine and the pirates, there is no level in nature? Are these people no different? Own. Letterfield was stunned for a long time, and then suddenly smiled. You little devil, are you so sharp now? There was a lot of relief in that smile. He straightened his body, scanned the water ball above his eyes that could reflect his body, and saw that he in the water ball was no longer so hideous and distorted as before. Although it was still muddy and bloodstained, it looked like it was still a gentleman. He picked up the bat umbrella on the ground, held it in his hand and stared blankly, old times. With that said, he looked at Luo Yi again. The black suit perfectly complements Luo Yi's temperament, as perfect as a graceful sun. The old days, are they really over? Letterfield chuckled and shook his head, squeezed the bat umbrella, and looked directly at Luo Yi. Don't underestimate the old times, kid, we are not as unbearable as you said. He erected the bat umbrella in front, and hockey resurfaced on the umbrella. He smiled and said, after all, you are what I learned from this old guy, and you also use Roger's swordsmanship. Upon hearing this, Luo Yi smiled, acknowledged that you are old. Luo Yi squeezed the magic knife Thousand Blades tightly and rushed over again, then do it well, and give what you can keep to future generations. The 2 figures continued to flash in this space, using the same pace and speed. In the eyes of everyone, they appear to be teleporting, appearing here all of a sudden, slashing and colliding, and then turning into 2 afterimages, appearing on the other side, and continuing to collide. Bang! With the last loud noise, Letterfield's figure dodges and stands still, his chest is constantly undulating, and the already unrhythmic breathing sounds from his nose, and Hockey, who is swept across the bat umbrella, disappears completely. 0. Look for flowers. On the other side, Luo Yi was in the shape of a ghost, standing opposite Letterfield after a few flashes. The red and black Hockey, like an electric light, gradually faded from Chu Shui's blade. No need to take care of my old fellow. Letterfield yelled with exposed veins. I can still fight. Don't get me wrong. Luo Yi lifted the magic knife 1,000 blades horizontally, 2 fingers in one stroke, and said lightly, it's just a stronger move to give you. By the way, use the speed you learned from you. Rubbing his 2 fingers on the blade, a red and black glow appeared, and the sun behind it shone on the golden glow, making the light appear blood red and dazzling. Oh, is it a move with my speed? I would like to see it. Letterfield once again erected the bat umbrella in front of him, took a deep breath, and said loudly, come on. Let me see the power of the new era in this old age. Call. For a moment, everything was still, but it seemed to bring the wind, blowing forward from Luo Yi's back, blowing Letterfield's braids, making him subconsciously squinted. Brush. And at the moment when the wind was floating, Luo Yi's figure appeared behind Letterfield. The speed could not be said to have changed in the blink of an eye. Even with his eyes open, he didn't see how Luo Yi moved, like a ghost. Generally. That slashing attack seemed to be a slashing out. Luo Yi maintained the posture that he had just slashed. Then he pulled a knife and inserted the blade into the scabbard. This is the power of your new age? Letterfield asked slowly with his back to him. The blade is gradually incorporated into the scabbard. Luo Yi said. Yes, the power of the new era, listen carefully. You haven't felt the rhythm of the wind in a long time. Click. Blade, close up, profound meaning, cut with one knife. Quote. Luo Yi said indifferently. Have you heard it, the sound of the kamikaze? Laugh. Letterfield's body burst open with a huge opening, and the body that appeared obliquely, pulled from the shoulder to the waist, blood spurted like a fountain, and scattered blood-colored flowers, which looked very gorgeous under the red sun. What? He stretched out his hand and pointed his 5 fingers at the sun in the rising sky, as if he wanted it to catch it. Obviously I haven't looked up after I was released from prison, so why is it so longing now? He held a virtual hold for a while, then suddenly released the 5 fingers he wanted to hold, and a smile of relief was conjured up at the corner of his mouth. He looked at the rising sun and muttered, it's great, new era. Puff through. Body. Fall down. The blood kept flowing out of his fallen body, and under the sun, a neon color was actually illuminated, setting off Letterfield's bloody body, reflecting it very brightly. Luo Yi turned his back to Letterfield's fallen body, took out an eye and slowly lit it, and muttered as he watched the smoke drifting into the sky. Letterfield, what the new era looks like, you've been watching it all the time, but you haven't noticed it. Yi. Chapter 105. Advertise here. The legend of the old generation, Letterfield, has come to an end. Luo Yi looked at his body for a long time before turning back to Momosegi's side. Why haven't you left yet? He looked at the Don Quixote family pirate who was lying there for a while, keeping his posture, and asked. The pirates pursed their lips, what can they say? Could it be that he just watched you two have similar fighting strength, in case you lose both? They will be able to pick it up. Not only can they get 6 billion Baileys to become celestial dragons, but they can also take advantage of the opportunity to solve the solitary red, and their reputation has been greatly shocked since then. But look at what Luo Yi looks like. The suit on his body was intact, but it was slightly wrinkled, and the area wetted by the rain was slowly drying out, and there was only a little redness in the throat under his body. At this time, I looked completely at ease. Wasn't it still a fierce battle at the beginning? Why did you kill the 1500 after a while? The pirates of Don Quixote yelled in their hearts. They were silent for a while and retreated step by step with their weapons. When the other citizens saw the pirates of Don Quixote retreating, they also silently followed. No one dared to let go of cruel words to Luo Yi. I was afraid that he would expose his fierceness just now and leave them here. Luo Yi, are you okay? Momosegi ran over quickly and fumbled for Luo Yi. The key point was to observe Luo Yi's throat carefully. After seeing that Luo Yi had nothing to do, he let out a sigh of relief. It's okay. After all, he is also old, his strength hasn't weakened, but his physical strength and hockey's volume have decreased a lot. Luo Yi turned his head and looked at Letterfield lying on the ground. Forget it, it's too pitiful to expose the corpse in the wilderness, who makes me full of love, Li Zi, Fen Yan. Luo Yi's 2 fingers stood side by side with his sword, and a flame of terrifying heat ignited from Letterfield. A piece of parchment floated from Letterfield's arms. The word Sunda, the wind is rising. Under Luo Yi's 8 trigrams, a gust of wind blows Letterfield's ashes to the sea. Buried in the sea, you should be satisfied too, What is that? When Luo Yi watched the wind take Letterfield's ashes to the direction of the sea, he noticed that a piece of parchment was flying with the wind, and it was drawn from the air with a wave. Treasure map. Luo Yi raised his brows, reached out his hand to take the map, and glanced at it. Momosegi. He did not understand. How can he understand this stuff? It was his own strength that had to hurry up in his cultivation since he was a child, and he didn't understand the others. Had it not been for the system to be able to sign in other things, Luo Yi would be illiterate now. Momosegi took it and took a closer look. After watching it for a while, he shook his head and said, Luo Yi, this is not a map of the 4 seas, nor the first half of the Grand Line. It should be the area of New World. New World. Luo Yi took the treasure map back, let out a flame with his sword fingers, and set it alight. Forget it. He knew what was recorded in this treasure map. It's nothing more than the vampire fruit of the phantom beast species. If it were on Letterfield, Luo Yi might take the opportunity to accept it. But if you want to find it yourself, then forget it, he doesn't have so much idle time. But there is no desire to force, but an indifferent attitude is maintained. It's also luck. Luo Yi smacked his lips, thinking of something. This old guy didn't get the fruit, otherwise he might not be able to hack to death so easily, at least the island would be destroyed. And he hadn't encountered the bug-level civet cat. In his memory, the civet cat's deformed leaf could replicate anyone, including its abilities. It has 80% of the power of the body, but it is more brittle and will disappear after a heavy blow. It's like Shadow Clone. Although there is this shortcoming, I really have to encounter it. In case I read the memory in their marines for him, and copy the 3 Admiral plus Sengoku, Garp and so on, some of them are busy themselves. Let's eat somewhere else, it's all like this here. Luo Yi glanced at the surrounding environment as he was fighting Letterfield. Even if neither of them used any large-scale skills, they still ruined nearby houses and ground. Okay, Momosuke and Robin left here with Luo Yi. The wind blew gently at the place where Letterfield died, and a small grass was blowing in the wind around them. In the castle in the distance, Doflamingo looked at the sky in the room, thinking in his heart how to obtain the eternal pointer of the final island. Doflamingo predicted that this time he might snatch prey from the 4 sea emperors. For some reason, after hearing Luo Yi's appearance in Dressrosa today, his heart felt that something was going to happen, and his uneasy emotions had been enveloping him. Dover. The big thing is not good. Drago Rapal opened the door again and shouted at Doflamingo. Doflamingo's blue veins violently on his forehead, but he asked calmly, "What's wrong?" What responded to him was the violent gasp of Drago Libal. This old man with a sloppy nose was really weak, and every heavy breathing beat Doflamingo's nerves. But Doflamingo still waited for the other person's breathing to calm down. After all, he set his own character to love the existence of family members, and he couldn't hurt the trapple who he called his family for a little thing. The pirates who were in charge of monitoring Luo Yi just called Worm to report that Luo Yi met and fought with Ji Gao just now. After Ji Gao has been solved by Luo Yi. After dragging Repol's breathing a little smoother, he told Doflamingo that he had just received the news. The veins on Doflamingo's head were violent again when he heard the news. Why monsters are coming to his island now? Especially when there was news from Kaido just now, Jack the Drow will also come to pick up the goods. Suck. Exhale. After Doflamingo took a big deep breath, he suddenly noticed the main point in Torre Bol's words, and shouted at Torre Bol angrily. 5.7 inches. What did you say? Lonely Red, the guy Barloric Letterfield was killed. Damn it. Luo Yi, this monster. Also, didn't I say to leave Luo Yi alone? Why do you want to monitor him? Quote. Doflamingo was so scared that Torre Bol could not speak. After all, it was indeed that he sent someone to monitor Luo Yi's movements in private. He didn't know Luo Yi's true strength very well. Forget it. Let Violet use his abilities to monitor Luo Yi, don't do anything extra. Otherwise, if the monster goes crazy here, everything about me will be ruined. Quote. But Dover, what happened again? Looking at the only non-stop trapple in front of him, Doflamingo's inner anger burned again. You forgot that the prize that you put in the bullfighting arena the other day was dark fruit. Chapter 106. Advertise here. At the moment, the bullfighting arena. Lively cheers resounded over the arena, and tens of thousands of people cheered. On the stage where the competition took center stage, 4 beauties in bikinis surrounded a box covered by white cloth, and a fat commentator with a microphone was shouting on it. Ladies and gentlemen, toys, welcome to the bullfighting arena. Today is another exciting day. Today's grand ceremony is about to be recorded in the annals of history. For this day, His Royal Highness King Doflamingo will very amazing items were given to us. A few days ago, in the war on the top of Marineford that shocked the world, the man who was supposed to be killed in Wonquan was saved by the Whitebeard pirates. He is the son of Roger, the One Piece King, and is now known as the Fire Fist Ace. But do you know why he was arrested and executed by Marine? Quote. In a short time, countless cheers rang from the seats, and the audience shouted questions, so that the host could announce the answer quickly. The commentator who heard many shouts nodded in satisfaction. Yes, the reason why the Fire Fist Ace was captured by Marine was because he lost to the former Shichibukai's Blackbeard, Marshal D. Teach. His ability is darkness, and he can absorb many items in the dark space. The Black Pawn also easily defeated 09 Fire Fist Ace with this ability, and now this ability has turned into Devil Fruit and reappears in the world. The moment the voice fell, the narrator raised the white cloth in his hand and pulled hard. As the white cloth disappeared, it was hidden under the white cloth. Logia dark fruit appeared in front of tens of thousands of viewers. Looking at the fruit lying quietly in the glass box, tens of thousands of spectators in the arena were deeply shocked. They couldn't believe that the king would actually present such a terrible devil fruit as a prize, and it was also the Blackbeard belonging to Shichibukai. The devil fruit ability during his lifetime, devil fruit of the strongest type Logia, and this taboo devil fruit will belong to the winner of this competition. It's great, it's amazing. It's so exciting. The shock lasted for 1 second, and the next second, deafening cheers resounded in the sky above the arena. After a long time, they couldn't fall, and countless people cheered and cheered. Today, We came here at the king's call, and the warriors of New World also came to the arena to compete for this devil fruit ability. And the masters who think they are extraordinary are also joining them. They will compete for each district, and the winner of each district will challenge the powerful Don Quixote family cadres, Xiao Pink, Dailing Ji, and Rao Ji, Mahaba C, and the hero of this arena Mr. Diamond C. The final winner will stand on this highly anticipated stage, take this forbidden fruit, and accept the cheers of countless people. More and more loud cheers sounded, more and more people joined the cheers, and many people showed crazy excitement. In the arena, in the shadow of a certain window, a man in a white mask stood there, looking at the people who were going crazy in the competition. A touch of sarcasm appeared at the corner of his mouth under the mask. It's a sad country, but the battle for death between humans is regarded as a cathartic game by them. It's really sad. On the other side, a corner of the arena, a certain shadow whispered, "Dark fruit's ability, this can't be handed over to those guys. I will inherit this devil fruit. May Lord I am. IMSA." Entrance to the arena track. Oh, it's so lively, and the prize is dark fruit. It's really fun, what do you think? Gion. Luo Yi in a black suit inserted Kabuto and looked at the arena in front of him. Momosuke and Robin stood beside him, covering their faces and sighing. A group of pirates lay around the three of them. These people rushed up when they saw Luo Yi and wanted to kill Luo Yi in exchange for their reward. It's terrible. This monster. So many people went together, and the result was instantly. Mom, I want to go home. Monkey D. Luo Yi, he is a monster. Many contestants looked at Luo Yi with their legs trembling. So many pirates with high bounty rushed up together, but their eyes didn't see what the monster did. All the people who rushed forward for a moment. All are dead. Regardless of the players who crawled away behind him, Luo Yi smiled as he watched the commentator in the arena. Just have fun. At the same time, inside the arena. After the opening speech of the game was finished, the long-awaited game finally began. Let you wait a long time, let me explain some of the next rules. The first round is a knockout game divided into 4 zones. The so-called knockout game means that everyone except yourself is an enemy, and the contestants are chaotic together. The final survivor is the final victor in the duel, and you will be disqualified if you fall on the field, and you will be disqualified if you die in a match. And there are also gifts waiting for everyone outside the field, that is, a small school of fighting fish. That is to say, if you fall into the arena, it is death, and if you stay in the arena waiting for the opponent to attack, whether you stay in the arena or fall in the arena is hell. Hey, why does this person always like to do this kind of thing? In the voice of the narrator echoing high in the sky, the man in the paper bag mask tore the paper bag on his head, revealing his true face. When Momosuke and Robin were chatting. At the moment when they saw the face of the paper bag, the audience in the audience suddenly uttered a film of exclamation, and countless people's faces showed deep fear. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. So much so that the commentator on the high platform was stunned. I have never seen such a crushed battle. This is not a battle at all, but a massacre. The man with the paper bag mask is really ridiculously strong. He is Mr. C, a very scary man. Not only the audience, but even on the stage of the competition, countless competitors also screamed in fear. Momosuke clutched his cheek in annoyance. Robin looked at Momosuke's reaction, and remembered Luo Yi's behavior when he was rescued by Luo Yi when he was a child. Question mark. At this moment, suddenly the man with hidden paper bag mask stretched out his hand to cover the man with paper bag mask on his head. Is this man the final winner in Zone A? Let us wait and see. Just as the bell of the bullfighting arena was about to ring, players from all over entered the arena. Luo Yi turned his head and put on a mask in the fearful eyes of the players on his side and walked slowly into the contestant passage. Is he going to take off the mask? Let's see the identity of the man with the paper bag mask. No way, his character is like this. Question mark. Looking at it now, no one in the entire district can beat this man. In the end, the rest of the contestants were forced to join forces, but dozens of powerful warriors from New World joined forces, and there was no power to win against that man. The battle in the entire zone was a complete massacre. Just like what happened in the field, countless competitors rushed forward. For the man with paper bag mask, there were only a few more ants, and the winner was determined in the blink of an eye. Just as countless viewers were excited, the battle in area was fiercer than usual at the beginning. A group of hidden dark horses appeared among the hundreds of 150 players in Area A, and they were solved by very cruel means at the beginning. 10 contestants. Chapter 107. Advertise here. We know this man. The opening ceremony of the Stormy Sea. This invincible man is Giza Shath, the captain of the Bloodhand pirate regiment who makes children dare not cry at night. Unexpectedly, that Bloodhand Shath would participate in the competition. This powerful strength is really shocking. The Bloodhand pirate group, a powerful group of pirates mixed between Big Mom and Whitebeard's realm, has also shocked countless people in New World. Especially their habit of slaughtering civilians makes people panic and fear. Bloodhand Shath's Bloodhand name is even more because he likes to stain his hands with blood, which is very cruel. Immediately after the fear of the Bloodhand pirates, deafening cheers rang out from the audience again, and countless people shouted for sass. Question mark question mark question mark question mark. There seems to be no doubt. The final victor in the battle in Zone A must be Shath from the Bloodhand Pirates. Wait, there is still a man standing in the arena. The cheering audience stopped abruptly. They looked at it with concentration. Sure enough, among the corpses all over the floor, there was a man in a black suit with a white ghost mask still standing in the arena. Bloodhand Shath naturally spotted the man in the suit standing behind him, showing a disdainful smile and said, unexpectedly, there is still a trash alive. Let me solve you together. As the words sounded, Shath raised his right fist high, like a sandbag, big fist wrapped around the armed color and blasted towards the white ghost masked man, and the high-speed fist raised bursts of air. Another cruel scene is about to happen. It can be imagined that this white ghost mask is about to be wiped out. Question mark. With the rise of the reputation of the Bloodhand Pirates, the reputation of Captain Bloodhand Shath has been resounding in New World in recent years. For these ordinary people, Bloodhand Shath is already a terrifying powerhouse. So everyone, including the explainer, has seen the cruel scene of the white masked man's head being smashed by his fist. Some women covered their eyes with their hands and couldn't bear to see this cruel scene. But in the next second, the voice of the commentator stopped abruptly, and tens of thousands of spectators were stunned, even the arena staff who watched the game were stunned. Question mark. I saw that the man with the white ghost mask who looked very thin with Shath, facing the fist that Shath blasted, gently stretched out a finger of his right hand, very easily blocked Shath's powerful punch, even a trace of breath the waves did not arouse. Shaston's face changed drastically. He knew the power of his own punch, enough to smash a boulder, but he didn't even shake the opponent's head. At this moment, Shath still didn't understand that the man with the white ghost mask in front of him was a terrifying strong man. Then he was a fool. Without thinking about it, Burgess would retreat after closing his fist. But the man with the white ghost mask was faster than him, his wrist turned, and his right hand quickly grasped Burgess' fist. It felt like an irresistible force came. The powerful power of the white ghost mask man could not control his body at all. He fell heavily on the arena, and the huge impact shook the entire arena. Jing, the previously lively arena suddenly fell into a weird silence. Many audiences could hardly believe that the invincible Shath was crushed like an ant. Seeing this scene, the fat narrator above was already shocked, and he trembled. One move was able to repel the captain of the Bloodhand Pirates. How strong is this white ghost mask man? By Burgess, lying on the ground, asked the man in the ghost mask, who are you? The one who can solve himself so easily must be the big name and strong on this sea, certainly not some unknown person. Soth, the captain of the Bloodhand Pirates, isn't it? The man in the white ghost mask did not hide his disdain in his tone. A guy who has become famous by slaughtering civilians is only of this level, but I would like to thank you for taking care of the rest and saving me hands. With that said, in the tens of thousands of expectant eyes, the white ghost mask man took off the white ghost mask from his head little by little. When the mask fell completely, a burst of exclamation sounded more shocked than before, and countless people covered their mouths and couldn't believe it. Ah, that person is. Even Burgess, who was lying on the ground, was so scared that his eyes were rounded, and he shouted, how is it possible? How come you are here? This man. It's this man. I didn't expect this man to appear here. The excitement in the eyes of the narrator was hard to vent with 3 consecutive excitement shouts. He is the legendary character who is wanted by the world government for 6 billion yuan, Monkey D. Luo Yi. This. I can no longer use words to express the passion in my heart. I didn't expect that there are only rumors of super characters who will appear in front of me. Quote. Luo Yi's famous degree was deliberately promoted by the world government, so that people all over the world knew of Luo Yi's existence. In the 4 seas, you may not know who the 4 emperors of New World are. But you will never be ignorant of the existence of Monkey D. Luo Yi. After all, that is the highest bounty in the world, with 6 billion Baileys. Especially after the Top War, people who thought that Marine was victorious saw the battle between Luo Yi and naval headquarters, which made the image of Luo Yi deeply rooted in people's minds, and today's legendary character battle scenes presented in front of many audiences. Backquote, as worthy of a man with a bounty of 6 billion Baileys. Monkey D. Luo Yi defeated SARS as soon as he came out. The winner of Zone A is Monkey D. Luo Yi. Quote. As the narrator finally announced the victory, the voice of deafening cheers rang out, and countless audience members stood up and raised their arms to call out Luo Yi's name. For these ordinary people, Luo Yi is a figure living in legend. How is it possible? How can even this kind of man appear here, the man with the highest wanted money in the world, the big man with a bounty of 6 billion, how can we defeat this kind of opponent? Seeing Luo Yi's handsome appearance, the contestants who were still fighting before shook their heads, and left in despair. Even if they were united, this kind of strong would not have the slightest hope of winning. Diamante, the cadre of the Don Quixote family who was stationed in the arena, was naturally taken aback by the appearance of both Sass and Luo Yi. Looking at Luo Yi standing in the center of the battlefield, Diamante said to herself worriedly. Good for Li, dark fruit, originally used to attract new cadres, unexpectedly attracted the captain of the Bloodhand Pirates. However, the arrival of a big figure like Luo Yi will lead to a change in the plan, and Dover must be notified as soon as possible. Quote. A Sass of the Bloodhand Pirates, Diamante doesn't have to worry about it. That guy just took advantage of the brutal reputation of the Bloodhand pirates. The real combat power is so small. Diamante is sure to solve this. Guys. At this time, it is really intriguing that someone of Luo Yi's level appeared here. Without much thought, Diamante immediately dialed the phone and reported to Doflamingo. Although the above commentator has determined that the winner of Zone A is Luo Yi, the battle in the arena did not stop. Sha Si-hu, who was lying on the ground, stood up with a loud voice, raised his right fist covered in steel armor and blasted towards Luo Yi. Monkey D. Luo Yi, you bastard, don't want to snatch my fruit. Burgess roared. Fire. Chapter 108. Advertise here. What? The commentator on the high platform was shocked. The Bloodhand Shath actually attacked Monkey D. Luo Yi. Isn't he afraid of death? The surrounding audience had already been so scared that they covered their mouths and exclaimed. No one could see that the role of Bloodhand Shath was completely tortured when faced with Luo Yi. It's not that Shath is not afraid of death, but that he has some problems in his head, which is not as good as ordinary people, but because of this, he keeps listening to the crew's opinions and looting and killing. Question mark. The right fist was clenched into a claw shape, and the whole body's strength poured into the body. Suddenly, the metal armguard on Shath's arm made waves of Wang Ling, and an invisible shock wave spread from the arm, forming a transparent air in the hand paw. Question mark. Wave claw. The invisible impact has set off a hurricane at the center of SARS, followed by a loud bang, and an earth-shattering explosion on the stage. The powerful power even the entire bullfighting arena trembles, and the hot exploding wind aroused by the explosion blows. To the audience. For a time, I don't know how many women's skirts are blown up, and many people are feasting their eyes. The explosion aroused thick smoke, and the smoke gradually dispersed under the breeze, showing a huge deep pit in front of tens of thousands of spectators, with yellow gravel scattered all over the arena. Yes, this claw is still powerful. It seems that the arm guard on your right hand is not simple. Luo Yi's praise came from behind 153. The moment when SARS started his hand, Luo Yi could see clearly, from wearing the shock wave emitted from the hole-like structure at the elbow of the armor of the right arm forms a claw-like attack against the opponent. Did it, I did it, I didn't even see how Monkey D. Luo Yi moved, the commentator's shocked voice resounded again. Sha Si quickly turned around and saw Luo Yi in a black suit looking at him with his arms folded. But if you rely on this alone, then your fate today is doomed. The moment the voice fell, Luo Yi's figure moved, and the extremely fast speed made Luo Yi burst into Burgess like a black streamer. Seeing Luo Yi's leg-sweeping attack, Sass quickly raised his arms to resist, and a clicking sound rang out. The powerful sweep kicked Burgess's right arm guard to smash, accompanied by the shattered arm guard. With Burgess both hands, arms and ribs are broken. Like a cannonball, Burgess fell heavily on the arena, and the huge impact smashed the entire arena into cracks. Question mark. Sure enough, just as everyone expected, there was only one result of Bloodhand Sass facing Monkey D. Luo Yi, that was being crushed directly. Luo Yi stepped on the chassis who wanted to stand up, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Luo Yi disdainfully said, "As you eligible for devil fruit even with a scum like you. This time, let me take you this time. Solve the annoying guy." With that, Shi Zihao raised his right foot high and stepped on Shaft's head, stepping away like a watermelon. Slap. What? The bloody scene made the audience scream. I declare, the winner of Area A is Monkey D. Luo Yi. The narrator watched Luo Yi stepped on SARS and quickly picked up the microphone and shouted. Oh, so strong. As expected of the man who broke through from the full power of naval headquarters. Strong like a monster. Luo Yi returned to the lounge amidst the cheers of the crowd, but on the way back he noticed Momosugi and Robin sitting in the auditorium. Luo Yi blew a kiss to the two. Momosugi provokes Byakugan for a while, and Robin snickers while covering his mouth. Soon, with the announcement of the bullring, the battle in Area B will begin. But no one noticed that a player with a white mask slipped away silently while the audience was in turmoil. Oh, it's really dangerous. Why did the big man Luo Yi come here? Oh, fortunately I was smarter and slipped away first, hehe. Shire walked outside with ease, until he was about to leave the house, he looked back at the arena, and the corner of his mouth under the mask lifted again. I don't know if you can complete the task given by Lord Yim. Bump. The winner of Zone B has been decided. Now we invite players from Zone C to enter the arena. Yeah, there is an interesting person here. Luo Yi, who was watching the game, looked at an ordinary-looking man in black clothes among the contestants, and brought a little interesting aura from him. Master Yi, I will do it for you. The black-clothed man stood among the players in the C area, bowed his head and whispered something, and his body trembled slightly as he followed. Moses, what's wrong? Did something happen over the bullfighting arena? Diamante. Doflamingo picked up the call from Diamante, but his heart was throbbing, making Doflamingo feel that something big was about to happen. Dover, something happened here. Monkey Katakana middle. D. Luo Yi appeared in the arena, or as a player. I suspect that he is eyeing dark fruit. What should I do? Every word of Diamante's words from the phone worm danced on Doflamingo's nerves. Monkey D. Luo Yi, why does this bastard appear in the bullfighting arena? Even if the monster of his kind eats devil fruit, it will get in the way. What he wants to do first is really daunting. Doflamingo held his head and thought to himself, but Diamante's urging was heard in his ear. Dover, 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 what should I do next? Shut up, it's so noisy. Doflamingo's angry shout interrupted Diamante's words. Diamante felt the anger from the opposite side of the phone worm, and clamped his big sausage mouth, and stopped talking. Huh. Doflamingo breathed violently for the third time today, and the 3 times were all caused by Luo Yi, although he didn't know that the eternal pointer of the final island was also caused by Luo Yi. Forget it. Don't worry about him, his strength is not something you can stop him. If you lose dark fruit, you can lose it. It was luck to meet dark fruit on the way back. What to lose? Doflamingo's green veins on his right hand violently spoke to Diamante, who was on the opposite side of the phone worm. Hi, I see, I will finish the conference normally. Well, be careful. Click. Bump. Immediately after the phone worm hung up, the chair behind Doflamingo was kicked directly by him. Doflamingo smashed all the objects that he could see with his eyes, venting the nameless anger in his heart. Monkey D. Luo Yi. Naval Headquarters, what? Are you sure this is the order of the world government? Sengoku looked at CP0 standing in front of him and shouted loudly. Hi, please change Marshal Marine's seat as soon as possible. Chapter 109. Advertise here. At this time, the whole world is in turmoil because of the eternal pointer of the ultimate island. Even if the world government doesn't care, it still asks Marine to replace the Marshal. Sengoku fixed his gaze on the opposite CP0, although he himself didn't want to do it for a long time, but it depends on the time to retire. This is Marshal Marine, Marine's supreme commander. Marine is not an iron plate, but also partisan. The 3 Admiral led 3 parties, Akainu's Hawks, Aokiji's Doves, and Kizaru, who clocked in and commuted. Representative of the Salted Fish faction. Luo Yi succeeded in becoming the leader of the Salted Fish faction with a headquarters, Vice Admiral, 20 years ago. Unfortunately, after being caught, Kizaru succeeded in taking the position, and then disappeared on the road of Salted Fish. Bump. Do you know that changing the Marine Marshal at this time will cause Marine to fall into turmoil, and it will not be possible to search Bullet completely, don't you know it? Knocking on the desktop with both hands, Sengoku gritted his teeth and looked at CP0 in front of him, but CP0 did not change his expression, but kept repeating his own words to answer Sengoku. Come on, so does the world government want that Admiral leader? Sengoku saw that the other party's attitude of not advancing was also annoying, so he could directly tell the other party's purpose in order to be prepared. Although Sengoku knew the other party's choice in his heart, he had already rejected it at the time, and the world government would never try again. The Admiral recommended by the world government, 5 elders as Akainu Admiral. Sure enough, it's Akainu. Did Akainu reach an agreement with the world government? When Sengoku heard the other party's words, his face was sullen, but the other party's answer was exactly what he expected, and in his mind he recalled Akainu's abnormal behavior since the top of the war. Sengoku wanted to play this in his mind, and looked at CP0 on the opposite side plainly. The old man said that as Marshal Marine, I should have recommended the next Marshal Marine. Then Marshal Sengoku's recommendation, Marine Admiral, Aokiji. After listening to Sengoku's words, CP0 nodded and did not say anything. He took out the envelope given by 5 elders when he set off from the world government, and gently placed the envelope in front of Sengoku. Sengoku squinted his eyes, took the envelope, opened it, and took out the notification slip inside. Sengoku's expression slowly couldn't hold back the plain breeze. Then, Marshal Sengoku, please consider it and retire. By the way, 5 elders also asked, please hurry up the progress of Monkey D. Luo Yi's arrest. During the short period of time when you are still in office, in time. Bump. CP0 closed the door. This is bad. Sengoku covered his head and looked at the envelope. The grabber picked up the phone worm on the table. After hearing the reply from the opposite Marine, Sengoku slowly breathed a sigh of relief and said, call the generals above Rear Admiral and have a Marine meeting. After hanging up the phone, Sengoku leaned heavily on the chair, kicking heavily, and the sheep beside him just accompanied him. Hey, what exactly does the world government want to do? The old man's sigh recalled in the room. The notice in Sengoku's hand says, Aokiji and Akainu, the winner is king. In the bullfighting arena, the battle in Zone C continues. So strong. The black man in Zone C is so strong. His name is Mew. The commentator yelled while watching the battle. Luo Yi stood on the player's viewing platform and watched the battle in the field. There was no such fast-crushing battle as in Area A, but the strength in Area C was very balanced. After the start, everyone found their opponent and played back and forth. Except for a black-clothed man, he didn't count people with one punch. He just fought with one person, then punched his opponent 5 times, and then changed to another person to fight. The opponent's weapon slashed on him, without splashing blood, but exposed tight muscle tissue, and quickly recovered after less than a few tenths of a second. In the eyes of other people, it seemed that it hadn't been cut, but Luo Yi could see clearly. Hey, it's interesting, fruit power. Or, Luo Yi recalled the 3 people who had appeared during the naval headquarters battle. Among them, the man who could absorb the strength had a body recovery ability different from ordinary people. The muscle tissue exposed when he was cut in the middle was very similar to the person on the field. However, the man on the court has a stronger ability to recover. Die to me. After the black-clothed man Mu had just hit a person, a burly man suddenly rushed behind him. His armed fist slammed into the black-clothed man's back and slammed into the field with the body of the black-clothed man. Bump. A violent dust explosion appeared, forming a huge smoke, but the audience could not see what was happening, and then a figure flew out of the smoke and fell on the ground. What? The person who attacked the wood was thrown out, so what about the wood? The commentator said loudly, looking at the strong man who fell on the ground. 0. Look for flowers. Touch, touch, a few more men were thrown out of the smoke, and the wooden figure slowly appeared as the smoke dissipated. Mu is completely fine. Too strong. Wood is still flying the players continuously, his speed and strength have become faster, isn't it just his limit just now? As the narrator's words fell, deafening cheers rang out, and countless audience members stood up and raised their arms and shouted Mu's name. Well, it doesn't seem to be a fruit ability, even if it's a Paramesha special fruit. What do you think of the punch just now? All directly interrupted the spine. So, is he also a beneficiary of this thing? Luo Yi took out the medicine that the system had removed from his blood from the system backpack. The purple-red medicine radiated a strange light in the medicine tube. Luo Yi stared at the potion for a while, then turned his head and watched the battle in the field. The speed and strength of the young man called Mu had indeed become faster. Hey, I'll see what you guys did in a while by the world government. A minute later, everyone on the field was hit by the black-clothed Mu and could not get up. The audience in the auditorium looked at the Mu standing in the center of the venue and gave applause and shouts. I declare, this is the winner of Zone C, Wood. Oh, very exciting. This guy named Mu is still quite strong. But it's useless. After that person comes to participate in the competition, the champion is destined to be him. That's right, the champion of this competition will only be that man, Monkey D. Luo Yi. His value can even make people become celestial dragons, which is amazing. Yes. After the audience in the audience cheered Mu for the first time, they began to discuss things about Luo Yi one after another. After all, it is worth 6 billion Baileys, surpassing One Piece's bounty, and more importantly, it can become a super attractive condition for celestial dragons. It's so boring. These people, there are so many ugliness in the world, Earl read. Luo Yi felt the changes in the atmosphere, and curled his lips helplessly. Okay, what is this gaze? Luo Yi felt a murderous gaze far beyond ordinary people, and followed his gaze curiously, only to find that the man named Mu was staring at Luo Yi. Still muttering something in his mouth. Righteous. Chapter 110. Advertise here. Are you all here? Sengoku sat on the main seat of the conference room and looked at all the marine generals below. The Crane Vice Admiral who was sitting in the first row nodded and replied. Except for the Vice Admiral, the base commander who has returned to their respective bases, and the Rear Admiral who led the marine soldiers to wait on the upside-down mountain, all the generals who can return are here. Sengoku nodded, and suddenly Kizaru's mean voice came in. Mr. Sengoku, Garp and Zephyr are not coming. The blue veins on Sengoku's head violently. I know, these two old guys don't care. Anyway, they have retired and semi-retired, just let them know these news later. Next, I want to announce a piece of news, that is. Bump. The door of the meeting room was pushed open directly and vigorously. Sengoku, the old man is back. Ha ha ha, I heard you were in a meeting. Garp's loud voice spread throughout the conference room, and the generals of the Hyuusan army looked at the old man behind him helplessly. Even though he was strong, his character was really helpless. Garp, are you him? Can you stop at this time? Forget it, sit down and listen to it together. Sengoku was so angry that his old friend Garp almost scolded a few swear words. With years of cultivating energy, Sengoku was able to hold back these swear words. Hurry up and let Garp find a place to sit. Don't stand there and be annoying and look upset. Huh, yo, how is your injury recovered from mole? Huo Shaoshan. Watching Garp greet Vice Admiral one by one and ask other people how they are injured. Many people can't answer directly. After being chopped by your son Luo Yi, you come over and ask for your condolences. Sengoku turned red with anger and had to shout to Garp. Garp, get back to your place quickly. I see, really, the old man is just saying hello to everyone. Garp clasped his nose and found his place and sat down, looking at the Crane Vice Admiral beside him. Garp showed the monkey's signature smile. When he was about to say something, he noticed that the crane gave him a look again. Garp followed Vice Admiral's eyes and found that Sengoku was staring at him, showing a black killing intent, and Garp had to do it. Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief as his old friend finally stopped playing treasures, and said again when he found the feeling before Garp didn't come. Everyone, this should be the last time I will preside over a meeting as a marshal. What? Sengoku-san, do you want to retire? Is it because the war on the top did not succeed in killing Ace Huaquan? Listening to the inquiries of Rear Admiral and Vice Admiral from the audience, Sengoku just waited a few seconds before the discussion gradually stopped and then opened his mouth. The rudeness of that war itself should be borne by me as the marshal, and the world government wants us to propose a trusted marshal to take office, don't you know what you think? After hearing what Sengoku said, everyone also knew that Sengoku's retirement was inevitable, and everyone started active discussions about the current 3 admiral. I think Akainu Admiral is good. Secondly, the justice of Akainu Admiral is what I am waiting for. The evil can never be retained, it must be killed all. Well, the new Marine Marshal must be Akainu Admiral. Akainu Admiral's performance at the top of the war is obvious to all, although Luo Yi was slashed badly. Ah, indeed, the one who was chopped off is old and miserable. F***ku, you will die if Luo Yi cut me off. When Akainu heard the following discussion, especially about himself being beaten by Luo Yi, his heart was even more angry, but he couldn't get angry at this moment. Aokiji Admiral is also good. Indeed, although Aokiji Admiral has been lazy in recent years, compared with Akainu Admiral's overly tough justice, Aokiji Admiral's justice is more suitable for most Marines. Second, although I am lazy now. Although I have become lazy a lot, Aokiji Admiral was the first person to stop Luo Yi at the time. He is already very powerful. Yeah, although I was chopped by Luo Yi, I still have it several times. Yes, it seems that Aokiji Admiral was chopped off by Luo Yi, although it is not bad for Akainu Admiral. That guy Luo Yi is really strong. After all, both Akainu Admiral and Aokiji Admiral were quickly defeated by him, and he was seriously injured. Hey, why do you guys have to mention that I was cut by that bastard Luo Yi? I also want face, what? Sakazuki was even worse, then it was all right. Aokiji listened to the discussion behind him, his fists were also loosened, and his grip was loosened. After hearing Sakazuki's more miserable words, he completely relaxed. Kizaru is a little looking forward to what others will think of him, which is really a bit of anticipation. After all, Admiral has been reviewed, so I should be evaluated too. What kind of evaluation will I get? So how about Kizaru Admiral? Oh, here comes. Kizaru heard other people mention his name, and couldn't help but sat up straight, listening carefully to other people's comments about him. 0. Kizaru Admiral is not good, right? Ah, indeed, this person is totally unsuccessful. Tenten only fishes in troubled waters. Obviously it is the fastest fruit. As a result, Tenten speaks so slowly. Well, and Kizaru Admiral will only show his speed when he is off work. It's too salty. This person can't do it, it's useless. Not at all. Say Kizaru Admiral was chopped by Luo Yi, right? Not only, but also kicked by Luo Yi. Enough, don't talk about it anymore. Why in your eyes I don't have a single advantage, Sakazuki and Kuzan, you will still boast, why are you almost assaulting me here? Will it be too much? Kizaru looked up at the roof of the meeting room as he thought about it, his ambitions were all washed away by these Rear Admiral and Vice Admiral words. The work is not worth it, I want to get off work. Kizaru couldn't help muttering. The eyes that didn't notice the disgust behind him became even more disgusting. Sengoku let the General Marine in the conference room discuss, and then he carefully observed the performance of the three candidates. When Sengoku saw Kizaru sitting slumped in the sense of why he was still not off work, the corners of his mouth twitched. Fortunately, I didn't report this stuff up at the time. Cough. Seeing that the discussion was almost done, Sengoku coughed and interrupted the discussion, and said to everyone, okay, stop it, I have roughly understood your thoughts. Then the world government gave a recommendation of 5.7, but my recommendation is indeed another person, the two of them are Akainu and Aokiji. When Akainu and Aokiji heard this, they straightened up and looked at each other. Kizaru is like a salted fish, and now they don't even want to turn over. What do you two think? After hearing Sengoku's words, Akainu and Aokiji discussed their own justice. Although the two belonged to Marine, they had completely different beliefs. They belonged to two people who would not talk to each other on the road. After arguing with each other for several hours, Sengoku had to interrupt the discussion between them, because who would not be taken away by whose ideas. Then, if you can't discuss it, you have to follow the plan of the world government, and the winner is king. Yes, X2. Aokiji and Akainu looked at each other again. Aokiji felt a little uneasy looking at the purple light flashing in Akainu's eyes. Chapter 111. Advertise here. When Naval Headquarters established that two admirals were about to fight to determine who would become Marine Marshal. At the same time, in the bullfighting arena, the finals have started. Amidst fierce cheers, the winners of the 4 regions of ABCD boarded the arena, one of which was Diamante. As for the rest of the Don Quixote family cadres who were supposed to be here, because they were afraid that Luo Yi might do something, they are returning to the Palace of Defense, which is the most important part of the Don Quixote family. Under the national attention, the dedicated arena for the duel is ready. Next, let us welcome 5 contestants into the arena. First of all, the winner of Zone A, the legendary character, has a bounty of 6 billion Bailey's Monkey D. Luo Yi. Quote. The next appearance is the disgusting guy who was bored by all the audience, the winner of Zone B, the pirate Lomeo who most wants him to disappear, and the winner of the C zone in this competition, Mew, and the D zone winner card comes on stage. Question mark. Then the 4 players who have emerged from the many powerful finals will have the final battle, and the finals will start soon. Question mark. Just after Luo Yi waited for the 409 people to stand up to their respective positions, in the only exit of the arena, as the smoke rose slowly, the cadres of the Don Quixote family finally appeared. And it is Mr. Diamante, one of the highest officials of this country, who is going to meet these 4 with Don Quixote Doflamingo, the king of our country. With the voice of the narrator falling, Diamante, dressed in a big red cloak and dressed like a savage who didn't know which ancient island came from, entered the battlefield. The moment Diamante entered the arena, the eyes of all 4 people in the field focused on him, curious, murderous, sluggish, and disdainful. Stepping into the arena stage, Diamante took the microphone in his hand and shouted to the audience. In order to match today's finals, the pool outside the arena is filled with extreme brutality that can attack players. The fighting fish. They are the most aggressive fighting fish leaders in each group. One of the fighting fish is tied to the back of the contest prize dark fruit. The rules of the finals are very simple, that is, take him over and stand on the stage at the end. Up is the final winner of this game. As Diamante's introduction to the game fell, the narrator announced the start of the game. Well, the finals are finally about to begin. Who will Mara fruit end up with? Let us look forward to it. Clang. The bell for the finals rang. Out of the scene expected by the tens of thousands of spectators on the stage, the 5 people in the final did not start a fierce duel at the moment the bell rang. Luo Yi glanced around the 4 people around him, and smiled faintly. In this way, there is no need for a big fight in our game. The winner has been decided from the beginning. Ka pointed to the side and Luo Yi excitedly said, that's natural. Only you, a great talent, are qualified to get dark fruit. Hearing the conversation between the two, Lomio was very surprised. The development of the matter was beyond his expectation. Even if he didn't know anything, Lomio could guess that the card was horrified, and could only kneel and lick Luo Yi. If Lomio was just shocked, Diamante's face would look very ugly, and things were heading for the worst. Although he had known that dark fruit was 80% of Luo Yi's, he thought that if the 3 of them could go up and block Luo Yi, he knelt and licked one. Huh, what happened? Why didn't the 5 players on the arena fight? Are they looking for allies to solve each other? Not only is the commentator strange, but the tens of thousands of spectators in the audience are also strange. Shouldn't the finals be more intense? How could it be so peaceful? It seems that the 2 of you have given up fighting for dark fruit. Quote. While speaking, Diamante moved quietly towards the edge of the arena. Since he had previously guessed that this scene happened, Diamante had a general strategy in mind, otherwise he would not be on the arena. With his hands in the suit pants kabuto, how could Diamante's small movements escape Luo Yi's eyes? But in the face of absolute power, no matter what little action Diamante does, there will only be one result, death. Just listen to Luo Yi indifferently. Your boss, Doflamingo, is really brave. You dare to hold a competition with dark fruit as our prize. It seems that you think you are invincible. Guru. Feeling the murderous aura turned into substance, Diamante swallowed subconsciously. With the world government's live broadcast at naval headquarters and the wanted order, Luo Yi's reputation has long surpassed that of Yangming Shiji, and even reached 6 billion Baileys with a bounty. This level of power is not something he can defeat. Moreover, Tor Bor had just notified him that the lonely Earl Red had just died under Luo Yi's hand. He didn't think he could be compared with the legendary Big Pirate. Bang! The pitch-black armament hockey quickly covered Wood's right hand, with armament hockey's superimposed attack power, and the Wood's claws instantly shattered the steel cloak. Mew turned around and looked at Luo Yi with dead fish eyes. Luo Yi imitated his dead fish eyes and replied, oh. Next second, the wood moved, and the figure flashed, and quickly rushed in front of Diamante, blasting towards Diamante with the strange claws in his right hand. Next, it's you, Monkey D. Luo Yi. Bullfighting cloak. Diamante's attention had long been focused on Lucy. At the moment Lucy started her hands, Diamante's right hand was the same, and the cloak fluttering behind her was like a shield blocking her. Dark claws appeared from behind Luo Yi. Feeling the clear touch of steel from the fingertips, Mew let out a soft voice of doubt. In my heart 153 he did not expect that the seemingly soft cloak would turn into steel in an instant. It seems that this guy is also a demon fruit power. The bullfighting arena fell into a strange silence, and tens of thousands of pairs of eyes were dumbfounded to see what happened in the field. Quote. Kindness. Question mark. In Diamante's panicked gaze, the sharp claws were directly inserted into Diamante's arm, only to feel a force hitting. Diamante was thrown out by the wood before he knew what was happening. Fell heavily to the ground. With a muffled sound, the moment the wooden claws hit the big red cloak, the seemingly soft cloak made a roar like steel. For her, go to death. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. What? Many spectators in the auditorium were already dumbfounded, and even the narrator above was so scared that they couldn't even speak. In their eyes, they had never failed in the history of the bullfighting arena. The highest cadre of the invincible Don Quixote family was actually under Mew. Can't hold it with a single move, this is no longer a description of rolling, it is simply a spike. Chapter 112. Advertise here. Luo Yi dodged the claw attack from Mew a little sideways. When Mew wanted to bully him, Luo Yi pressed his head and slammed it directly into the ground of the arena. Boom. Violent smoke appeared along with the fragmentation of the arena's ground, obstructing half of the arena scene, so that many spectators could not pay attention to the situation in the arena. It looks like you are a member of the world government. Luo Yi appeared out of the smoke, looking at the wood that was pressed into the ground by his upper body. The strange hand feeling just now made people feel very strange. Ah, What? World government? Question mark. Seeing Luo Yi emerge from the smoke, especially after hearing his words, Diamante's heart has fallen to the bottom. Not only Luo Yi, people from the world government actually appeared in Dressrosa. The difference in combat power between them and Luo Yi is a huge difference. Now there is another person who can kill himself in the world government in seconds. What happened? It is really shocking. The Mu in Area C is actually a member of the rumored world government. How can this be possible? The trembling voice of the commentator reverberated over the arena, and the audience above the auditorium was full of fear. Under the propaganda of the world government, the people of the world government are noble, which has made people very uncomfortable, let alone in a country controlled by Doflamingo. Then what? Stop screaming, or hand over devil fruit. Luo Yi teleported to Diamante and stepped on Diamante's chest. Luo Yi naturally did not show mercy to Doflamingo's subordinates. He used a lot of strength on this foot, and Diamante spewed out a big mouthful of blood in the sound of pouting. Ha ha ha. Diamante laughed suddenly, looked up at Luo Yi and said sarcastically, Monkey D. Luo Yi. How can you, a mindless guy, be Dover's opponent? As early as when you appeared, dark fruit was sent away. Use dark fruit as a gift for the game. This is just a leader to attract masters to participate in the game and invite them to become a member of the Don Quixote Pirates. If you don't want to, you can only die. Ming has never thought of giving a powerful fruit like dark fruit to others. So when Luo Yi appeared, Diamante had already realized that this guy won the battle in the arena. Who can fight Luo Yi in the arena, let alone this arena? This country doesn't have it. Yes. The corners of Luo Yi's mouth were slightly raised, and the disdain was so dazzling in Diamante's eyes. When the voice fell, Luo Yi raised his foot and stepped on it again. This foot used a stronger force than before. The entire arena was shaking, and the dense cracks spread like a spider web with Diamante as the center. As for Diamante, although he restored his clothes to steel in time, how could he withstand the terrifying power of Luo Yi? Even the steel clothes on his body were trampled on to pieces, not to mention more than a dozen ribs in his chest, all of which were broken and a mouthful of blood squirting from Diamante's mouth. Question mark question mark question mark question mark. With the break of the steel clothes on the body, a purple-blue globular fruit with a spiral pattern on the top, the stalk is in the shape of a vortex at the end of the uzumaki on the green side, and the epidermis is a collection of countless small purple spiral fruit patterns. Devil fruit fell from Diamante. Seeing the fruit falling from his body, Diamante subconsciously reached out to grab the rolling devil fruit. Suddenly, dark fruit, which had been rolling off the ground with big hands, had been grabbing, and this person was Lomio. Lomio, who had obtained the dark fruit, flew in front of Sabo, handed the dark fruit to Luo Yi, and said with a flattering smile, Come on, Lord Luo Yi, this is dark fruit. I will dedicate it to you. Seeing Luo Yi took the dark fruit, Diamante was full of unwillingness. How did Luo Yi know that dark fruit was hiding on him? As if seeing through Diamante's thoughts, Luo Yi said lightly, Do you think you can lie to me? As long as I revealed my identity, you and dark fruit have always existed in my eyes. Today, dark fruit will do whatever it takes. In my hands, no matter how hard you struggle, you will not escape your lost destiny. In the next second, Luo Yi kicked out, kicking Diamante out like a cannonball fired, and hitting the audience with a bang, causing a large amount of dust and smoke to fly up. The dark fruit has been obtained, and Diamante is useless. Luo Yi didn't want to watch Doflamingo's flamingo dog stay in front of him. As Diamante was kicked into the audience, a film of exclamations rang out. Everyone can see that the development of things is no longer a problem of the game. If they continue to stay here, they are likely to be the same as the more than a dozen unlucky ghost pirates killed by Diamante. Even the many contestants in the competition had seen a ghost. The Revolutionary Army Chief of Staff Sabo appeared, and Diamante was kicked by Luo Yi. Anyone could smell something wrong in the air. This is dark fruit, something that Blackbeard has been fighting for half a lifetime. It's just so. The dark fruit in Luo Yi's hand was thrown up and down, watching the surrounding audience quickly flee. Suddenly, a figure flew out of the smoke, opening its mouth wide and biting the dark fruit thrown in the air by Luo Yi. Realizing that he didn't have dark fruit's pulp in his mouth, he uttered a question. He just clearly felt that his lips had touched dark fruit. Why didn't he bite? Wow, it's drooling, it's disgusting. After hearing Luo Yi's words, Mew turned his head and looked at Luo Yi behind him, and found that dark fruit was still in Luo Yi's hands. However, Luo Yi was holding it and rubbing it against Lomio, as if there was something dirty on it. When Luo Yi rubbed the fruit disgustingly, he noticed that Mu's gaze was staring at him. What are you looking at? Go to hell. Mu's figure rushed towards Luo Yi again. This time his whole body was covered with armament hockey, and the speed was much faster than the speed of the sneak attack on the fruit just now. Only you. Luo Yi kicked towards the wood that Fei rushed over. Boom. There was a loud and earth-shattering noise, countless rubble and smoke flying up. The entire bullfighting arena was shaking with terrible force, the ground underfoot was trembling, and the impact of the explosion lifted Lomio away. Did Li Jiao. The staff and the narrator on the narration stage were suddenly stunned, and the shouts from their mouths could hardly express the great shock in their hearts at the moment. Question mark. Not only the arena, but also many people outside the arena also felt a strong sense of vibration. A huge flame rose from the arena, and the entire arena was trembling. People were taken aback when they saw cracks crawling up the walls of the arena like spider webs. What happened inside? What happened to that huge shock wave? How powerful is it that even the arena is hard to resist? Could it be that the cadres of the Don Quixote family appeared on the stage? People have not yet reacted to their surprise. At the gate of the arena, countless spectators and toys scrambled to rush out of the gate, with a look of fear on everyone's face. Hey, world government is really interesting. It caused you a monster to order. Luo Yi looked at the wooden kicked by him, and the other party was slowly standing up. Chapter 113. Advertise here. Bang, bang, Luo Yi. A roar like a beast came out from his mouth. Mu's eyes instantly turned red, scarlet eyes, blue veins under his skin violently, terrible murderous aura exuded, and his fists clenched tightly and made a muffled noise. Interesting, your strength has surged a lot than just now. No, is this your real strength? Luo Yi brought the dark fruit into the system space casually, and then changed his hand and slammed it on the head of the rushing wood. The violent impact caused the entire arena to collapse. Momosuke saw this scene and had to take Robin to escape again, and by the way also brought the narrator and the bikini ladies. Luo Yi and Mu rushed out of the arena, and a series of collisions sounded, shaking the word, thunder. Luo Yi, who uses the Kimen of Fenghuki, is like a god who controls thunder and lightning hovering high in the air, and waves of thunder and lightning are like sharp blades smashing into the wood under the ground. In the endless explosions, the tall houses were destroyed by thunder and lightning, and most of the destroyed streets were no longer alone. The battle between Luo Yi and Mu was really earth-shattering, and the destructive power was really terrifying. On the tall buildings, the wood turns into a purple-black light, constantly flashing in the roof. But even at extremely fast speeds, Luo Yi can easily hit this guy with the thunder and lightning that the powerful observation hockey accurately smashed. After Mu's body is hit by thunder, it will turn into a charred state, but after a few seconds, 157 will peel off and grow new flesh. Bang! Suddenly, the wooden feet that had been bearing the thunder stomped on, and the violent power vented out. Immediately there was a rumbling, and the 10-meter-high building collapsed under the feet of the wooden pair. The whole street was trembling, and large swaths of thick fog and rubble were flying. When the house collapsed, the wooden figure turned into a streamer and burst out, raising the iron fist covered by armament hockey and blasting towards Luo Yi who was covered in thunder and lightning. Luo Yi, for the hatred of our clan, for the Lord. You die for me. Amidst the shouts full of anger and hatred, the wooden figure exploded with a murderous intent, the pupils in the eyes exuded a purplish red light shrouded in his hands, his fists turned into a giant dragon, jumping through the void, and heading straight towards Luo Yi kill. Facing the wood that had long been occupied by anger and madness, Luo Yi didn't have any words, his fists blasted out, pushing countless thunder and lightning, and rushing forward. Shaking. Lei Daiquan. The fists collided, the violent fists collided, a large amount of blood fell from the fist between the two, Luo Yi's fist smashed the wooden fists. Suddenly, a terrible shock wave radiated centered on the two of them, and the void shattered, and a series of spatial cracks appeared beside them, even the void could not bear such a terrifying force. Dozens of hurricanes were set off in the streets out of thin air. Large objects and shops were blown away by the hurricane. Pieces of houses fell like waves. The collision of this force even shook the entire Dressrosa. Fortunately, all the people on this street have fled, otherwise the shock wave that leaked a little would be enough to kill countless ordinary people. What a terrible force this is, it shattered the whole house with one kick. It is a powerful figure of legendary level, especially the collision just now, the whole street was razed to the ground. The national soldier in the distance looked at this scene, and can't help but express a heartfelt sigh. The battlefield opened by Luo Yi and Mu has become a forbidden place in Dressrosa, where people fled outside like a tide. Damn it, Luo Yi, not only took my dark fruit. You are still doing this kind of thing in my country. I took this account down. With the help of string fruit, Doflamingo stood in the air, watching the battle between the two people, gritting his teeth in resentment, but did not dare to approach. With a scream, Luo Yi, who was suspended in midair, suddenly disappeared from the eyes of the wood. In the next second, Mu's eyes suddenly shrank, and through the corner of his eyes, he could clearly see the disappearing Luo Yi appearing on the right. Question mark. The thighs mingled with the sound of wind and thunder swept like a streamer. Mu did not react slowly, and quickly crossed his hands to block him. Bang! I just felt a huge force hit, suspended in the sky wood and was directly repelled hundreds of meters. But in the end, relying on the power that gushes out like tide in the body at this moment, Mu Zhongsheng resisted Luo Yi's attack. Question mark. One shot failed. Luo Yi's figure flashed again, this time he appeared behind the wooden body at a faster speed, and the fists wrapped by armament hockey blasted towards the wooden back. Shaking. Lei Daiquan. After just a few breaths, the wooden back has fully recovered, and the pervert's resilience has surpassed those of Zone's devil fruit awakeners. Mu is not an ordinary person. As a descendant of the celestial dragon slaughtered by Luo Yi, plus a body that has been transformed countless times by the new life equation, Mu has long possessed abilities that ordinary people do not have. Dark red blood spurted out of his mouth. This was congestion from his chest. When he spurted this blood out of his mouth, Mu's rapid breathing suddenly calmed down a lot. Question mark. Call. The earth-shattering explosion sounded like dozens of naval guns roaring together. Houses collapsed with fallen wood as the center. The shaking ground cracked, and a series of dark bottomless cracks spread across the entire street. One location. A burst of air broke into the ears, like a sharp sword passing through. The dense fog in the sky split into two. Luo Yi was already moving towards the woods at the speed of thunder and lightning. Question mark. Puff. That is the resilience of pervert. For example, it may take a few weeks for an ordinary person to fully heal a 10-centimeter bloodstain, while a person who has been modified by a new way of life can stop the bleeding instantly, and after half an hour, there will be no trace. If someone could see through the wooden back at this moment, he could clearly see that the torn flesh and blood grew out little by little, the broken blood vessels began to repair, and even the broken vertebrae had grown at a very fast rate. Especially with the increase of the potion, the resilience of the wood has also doubled. In the past, it was already pervert compared to ordinary people, and now it is even pervert in pervert. Before the punch arrived, an explosion suddenly remembered. It was a sonic boom formed by breaking the sound barrier with the speed of the punch. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Boom. After perceiving the scene in the dust by seeing and hearing the color, Luo Yi stepped hard in the air. The air was broken into cracks, and the blue and white thunder and lightning brought by the shaking characters wrapped around Luo Yi's body. At this moment, Mew had no time to resist, and Luo Yi was directly blasted back by Luo Yi's double fists. His body was not controlled by Mew. It was like a cannonball flying from the muzzle, sliding across a beautiful float in the sky, followed by a heavy collision. On the ground. Hey, isn't it dead yet? Mew got up and stood up and twisted his waist. Apart from the slight pain that still came, it would not affect the next battle. Lying in the deep pit, Mew did not stand up immediately. The power of Luo Yi's fist just now was too violent. Mew's vertebrae were broken into several pieces, his chest cavity was also exploded, and the organs inside had long since disappeared. Chapter 114. Advertise here. Ah! Accompanied by Mew's angry shout, he raised his right foot and stepped on the ground. Suddenly terrible power gushed out from the soles of the feet, the earth was trembling, and the remaining high-rise buildings collapsed one after another amidst the rumbling of the remaining tall buildings. The cracks had been extended with the wooden right foot as the center, and the end could not be seen at a glance. A huge rock wall stood tall. In front of the wood. With a wave of his hand, a huge hill-like wall appeared out of thin air. This kind of power could not be overstated by moving mountains and reclaiming the sea, just like the gods in the rumor. Looking at the huge wall pierced in front of the thick fog, Luo Yi's mouth was slightly raised, revealing a touch of disdain. No matter how many such walls are, it is useless. Without weakening his own speed at all, Luo Yi stepped out into the air, scoring a few points faster than he was already fast. Suddenly, the pitch-black armament hockey was like a layer of invisible armor covering Luo Yi's whole body. Luo Yi, who was entwined with thunder in pitch blackness, turned into a streamer and crashed into the stone wall without fear. Boom. In an instant, the earth-shaking explosion sounded, and the violent impact was like an invisible hurricane of dozens of levels. The dense fog that enveloped the entire street was instantly blown away. The strong wind swept through half of Dressrosa, and even just reached the second floor of the palace. Quixote officials and others also felt a strong wind blowing. Monster. It's horrible. Monkey D. Luo Yi. A real monster. Fortunately, we didn't fight him, otherwise, we won't survive at all, this kind of terrifying combat power. Don Quixote's cadres watched the battle erupting in the distance. They were frightened. The seemingly incomparably hard wall, but like tofu dregs, faced Luo Yi's incomparable impact. The huge wall was shattered at a speed that was visible to the naked eye, and pieces of rubble fell like rain. Luo Yi, take your life. Among the gravel, the wood turned into a stream of light and approached Luo Yi. The repaired fists were like cannonballs. Without hesitation, Luo Yi raised his fists to meet him. The impact visible to the naked eye was vented out, fragments of rubble burst and turned into a cloud of stone fog, and bright red blood was spilled from the sky. Obviously, after a strong collision, Mew's fists were smashed by Luo Yi again, but they recovered after a breath. Question mark question mark question mark question mark. High in the sky, the two turned into phantoms invisible to the naked eye. Only the strong observation hockey could see their movements clearly. There were more than 10 or even dozens of collisions every minute and every second, and the violent shock waves were endless. Never distribute. Bright red blood was constantly spilling from the sky, and the battle between the two had evolved into a fierce battle that determined life and death. The continuous repair of the broken wooden body did not count as being shattered. The several blocks centered on the two had long been wiped out and turned into terrible ruins. Step on. Mew was thrown back by Luo Yi's fist. A drop of blood spilled from Luo Yi's fingers, the dark fists were already bloody, and the tiger's mouth was shattered with several wounds. Even if the mighty armament hockey was in such a fierce fight, it is also difficult to form an effective defense. In contrast, under the fierce collision, Luo Yi took the upper hand, coughing up blood. The more he fought, the more shocked by Luo Yi's explosive power. Not losing to the powerful body he transformed, even surpassing a lot, and the terrifying power and speed, greatly exceeded Lu's expectations. Mew could hardly believe that the physique that he was proud of actually fell into a disadvantage. After all, His physical skills are exclusively based on celestial dragons given by Lord Yim. That is a super strength physical technique that has been continuously passed down and transformed for hundreds of years, although the celestial dragons are no longer in contact. But over the years, the world government has trained many obedient candidates with this physical technique secret, but now this physical technique has been crushed by Luo Yi. With a click, Mew ate the red gem earrings hanging around his ears. Luo Yi clearly saw the moment the gem was crushed, and the purple-red liquid entered Mew's mouth. It was the potion that was injected into Akainu's body at the time, so will this guy explode next? Luo Yi immediately thought of the medicine in Akainu's body at the time, as well as Akainu's performance at that time, all in Luo Yi's mind. Boom. A violent momentum suddenly erupted from the wooden body like a volcano, the void was shaken, and waves of invisible hurricanes wrapped around the wooden body. Seeing this scene, Luo Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, his face showed unspeakable dignity. What a madman, do you want to work hard to this point? Mew gathers the power of his whole body. This is the final potential and upgrade after he has taken in a lot of energy. He once again forcibly increases his combat power despite the crisis, and he can clearly realize the broken wounds all over his body. Even the body that has been modified many times by the new formula of life is not enough to hold such a powerful force. As he continued to ascend, Mew finally ended up with death, but death was nothing to Mew. He had already realized death. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a move like Nirvana. As long as Luo Yi can be killed, what about dying by himself? Go to hell and make amends to my family. Huh, who are you? Luo Yi's words made Luo Yi a little questionable. When did he know this guy? And listening to him, his family members were killed by me. I have no impression, and I don't like to kill the whole family. 0. Look for flowers. I am the youngest son of Gai Siat Sheng. I was away 20 years ago, so I was not killed by you. I was protected by her later. Monkey D. Luo Yi. You demon who killed the creator, the revenge 20 years ago and her wish. Go to death. Mu's angry words came into Luo Yi's ears. Oh, what trash's son is it? Luo Yi's voice came from Mu's ears. As soon as Mew was about to turn his head, Luo Yi hit his cheek with a punch from the air to the ground, causing a huge shock. Luo Yi shook his hand, which was stained with Mu's blood. Standing in the air looking at the half-blooded wood on the face, the flesh and blood on the opponent's face was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. I didn't expect you to be left in that group of garbage families, don't you want to live well? Come and die, garbage. Did you run away? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Cut. Monster. In the bang, large streets flew up under this huge impact, the ground was cracking, and the entire island was trembling under the impact. Cut. First protect the things in the factory, and be ready to evacuate at any time. Luo Yi's disgusting and spitting expression caused the already angry Mew Min to collapse. His eyes were completely transformed into beast's eyes, his mouth split to the ears, and he yelled at Luo Yi. Dover. Ha! After all, if Luo Yi and Mew Zai continue to fight like this, the entire island may be destroyed. Doflamingo stared at the vibrations and explosions coming from a distance, and gave his orders to his followers. In the palace in the distance, Doflamingo landed on the second floor of the palace. A big mouth of blood spewed out from the wooden mouth, just like the cannonball shot from the muzzle, the wooden figure cut through the sky, causing a burst of harsh air bursts, and finally hit dozens of houses in a row, and fell heavily to the ground. The cadres rushed up and asked Ming brother how to solve this situation. Then there was a sound of breaking through the air, and above the cloudless sky, Luo Yi turned into a stream of light and quickly approached the wood, and the black giant fist wrapped in armament hockey blasted out. Luo Yi looked up at the wood floating on the sky like a beast, and grinned. It's still quite fast to hide. Righteous. Question mark. Puff. Little lord. There was another earth-shattering loud noise. Before the fist arrived, the fierce fist wind had blown on his face, and the thick smoke gradually dispersed. Luo Yi, who was in the deep pit, waved his hand and set off a violent wind to blow the surrounding smoke. If it were normal if people face this situation, they die. Chapter 115. Advertise here. Kun, Yanfu. Looking at the wood hanging high in the sky, Luo Yi raised his hands, and invisible power came out. On several ruined streets around a radius, pieces of rubble tremble. Then it seemed as if an invisible hand grabbed the gravel from the ground and suspended it high in the sky. At this moment, the countless chaotic residents on the island hadn't realized what was happening, and the sky suddenly darkened and looked up. In a moment, tens of thousands of pairs of eyes were shocked, and countless residents stopped their movements and looked at the sky. They were stunned that their eyes had been widened, and they couldn't describe the scene at this moment in any language. Pieces of rubble are suspended high in the sky. Under the control of the wood, these rubbles have been continuously rotating in a circular trajectory with Luo Yi as the center. The sky is full of rubble and even the sky is blocked. It makes the scalp numb. Lizzie, entangled in fire. 157. Amidst Mu's angry and murderous shouts, Luo Yi suddenly pushed his palm upwards, and the floating boulders smashed towards the wood in the sky under the push of invisible force. The rubble and the air rubbed at a super high speed, generating a lot of heat. You saw a group of flames burning on the rubble, and then the flame was wrapped around the rubble under the control of a strange force. In a blink of an eye, the scattered rocks all over the sky turned into giant great fireballs that fell from the sky. Before the fireball arrived, the scorching heat wave had already hit the face, and the temperature in the air suddenly rose by several degrees. Piles of flames roared through the sky, and the harsh roar sounded like the whistle of a sea train when it was traveling at high speed. Oh, the wood side in the air quickly used his limbs to step on the moonwalk in the air to avoid the fireball. If he couldn't avoid it, he smashed the fireball with his fists to the ground. Every time he hits a fist and on his body, there will be a lot of burn wounds. Fix it quickly. Hoo-hoo. Amidst the bursts of sound, fireballs illuminate the sky covered by smoke like daylight. Immediately afterwards, a continuous explosion sounded, and the damage caused by the impact of each fireball far exceeded that of the cannonball. I saw that a few meters high flames soared into the sky, and dense fireballs flew into the air like a violent storm and exploded. However, many fireballs were smashed into the storefront from the air, forming tall fire pillars. Bang! Bang! The explosion sounded one after another, and half of Dressrosa trembled in this continuous explosion, as if a magnitude 10 earthquake had occurred. Houses fell in rows like waves, and large pieces of rubble fell from the 10-meter-high building. On and off. Along the streets, crowds of people fleeing in a panic with their heads in their heads can be seen everywhere. Screams, crowds, and crying sounded through the streets, and countless people ran away from the battlefield. Luo Yi and Mu fought, mainly because Luo Yi's destructive power was enough to describe the destruction of the heavens and the earth, without exaggerating them. It seems a bit overdone. After perceiving the panic of the people on the island through seeing and hearing, Luo Yi muttered to himself, looking up at the sky that is constantly turning into coke and self-repairing monsters, his eyes flashed with silvery white light. Instant. Luo Yi's figure flashed, teleporting to Mu's side, his right fist clenched, and a faint white light came out to completely envelop Luo Yi's right fist. The void collapses. In light words, Luo Yi raised his right fist wrapped in white light and blasted out. Luo Yi's fist did not directly hit Mu's body, but hit the void. The quick reacting Mu escaped in time, but the terrible power was still there. It broke out in an instant. What? Mu suddenly let out a scream, although Luo Yi didn't hit Mu with his fist and there was no tide-like power coming. But Mu felt that his body had countless small knives cutting inside his body. The whole body was split into several pieces under an invisible force. It felt as if there were two big hands tearing his body, and the internal organs felt moving. Immediately after this faint but clear click sounded, with Luo Yi's fist as the center, the cracks in the space glowing with light spread out like tree branches. Luo Yi usually likes to use a sword to cut out the dimensional slash, and doesn't like to use his fist to smash the void. Because that would also cause him to be injured, but this time facing a troublesome monster like Mu, which is extremely capable of repairing, Luo Yi is not sure whether a single slash will work, so he directly used the space to break down. Cause damage to wood. Luo Yi's fist didn't seem to hit Mu's body, but it actually collapsed the void in front of him, and the void was shattered. How could the wood in this space in the depths be safe and sound? At this moment, Mu, who suddenly recovered his senses, felt that what he was facing was not a 5.7 slash but a real bright moon. If given a certain amount of time, with the pervert-like resilience of the wood, it will surely be able to quickly recover all the injuries on the body. The huge waning moon stunned the void, terrifying power erupted, and the calm void was suddenly distorted, and even the void was burst by this force, shattering like glass. When the light dissipated, Luo Yi quickly opened his eyes, the golden light came straight into his eyes, and the sun was blocked by the white clouds and finally appeared. The dust and fog covering Dressrosa were all blown away by the impact, and the sky of this country returned to the blue and calm before the chaos. In the calm sky, the wood remains could not be found. Perhaps it was wiped out in the explosion just now, or it was completely annihilated in the turbulence of space. The wood, which had just recovered a little strength, had no power to escape this attack. The void collapsed in pieces, and black holes appeared in the dark space. Not only the injuries seen on the surface of the body, but also the internal organs were severely traumatized. As the blade moved in the void, a huge waning moon of several tens of meters appeared out of thin air. With the sound of earth-shattering explosions, the space turbulence drove a violent impact over Dressrosa, a hurricane rushed through every street, and the ruins on the ground were blown up by the hurricane. But Luo Yi, who had already made up his mind to solve the wood, did not hesitate to give him time to recover. Luo Yi backhand drew out the magic knife Thousand Blades, and the power of the white light attached to the magic knife Thousand Blades in his hand. Unless Mu can escape from this space in an instant, even if Mu escaped Luo Yi's fist, it would still be difficult to escape this move. Bright red blood spilled from the sky. The thick smoke and haze from the previous explosion blocked the sun from time to time. The entire Dressrosa was shrouded in a huge shadow. The wooden body was like broken ceramics, winding and twisting cracks crawling. Full of wood body, bright red blood flows out like money zero. Puff. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. The waning moon smashed on the wooden body, and then a dazzling light radiated out, and countless people closed their eyes, even Luo Yi was no exception. Following Luo Yi's movements, the floating waning moon behind him moved, and the waning moon sprinkled with the power of the void, and the ground suddenly cracked a number of dark and bottomless cracks. The static waning moon rotated at a high speed, the void trembled, and an invisible force turned into a force. The hurricane swept out, and the waning moon that ruined the sky and the earth shuttled directly in the void, appearing in front of the wood out of thin air. Holding the hilt tightly with both hands, gently draw a half-moon-shaped trajectory in front of him. Imda. Chapter 116. Advertise here. Call. Standing on the top of the ruins, Luo Yi let out a sigh of relief, and shook his head helplessly as he watched the ruined area of several kilometers around him. On a boulder in front of Luo Yi was flowing a puddle of purple-red liquid. For some reason, after Luo Yi saw the puddle of liquid, he had a feeling that the puddle of liquid was alive, which made people feel uncomfortable from the bottom of their hearts. Comfortable. Shaking word palm thunder. Luo Yi stretched out his right hand toward the pool of liquid, and a blue and white thunder erupted from his palm, extinguishing the liquid with the boulder under him. Luo Yi looked at the liquid that had disappeared under his feet, and took out the bottle of impurities that the system had removed from his body from the system backpack. The purple-red liquid was flowing in the test tube. It's a bit similar, but the effect is not the same. Luo Yi, is it resolved? Momosegi's voice sounded behind Luo Yi. Luo Yi turned around and put the test tube in his hand into the system backpack, spreading his hand to Momosegi. Well, let's go. Some things in this country cannot be solved by the three of us now, and there will be opportunities in the future. Luo Yi glanced lightly somewhere on the island below her feet. Well, where do you go next, 09? Go back to the first half. 1 hour after Luo Yi and the three left the place, a news bird slowly landed from a high altitude to the place where Luo Yi had just stood. He took out the camera he had just retrieved next to a bridge from his backpack in front of his neck. Although I don't know why the place I went to has been destroyed. But it's good to find the camera, and I won't be punished by the boss. The news bird slowed its wings and started flying towards the place where the big newsman Morgans was. The camera in the backpack began to slowly play the scene in the backpack. The scene was the scene of Luo Yi fighting Letterfield. Holy Land Mariajoy, among the flowers. Master Yim, Mu's tracking has disappeared. A white-haired man in a white coat knelt on the ground, ignoring that the thorns under his knees pierced into his knees, and reported to the Black Shadow who could not look directly in front of him. Wood, I remember it was the one that was nearly completed by you, tracking disappeared. Did he escape your control? The female voice full of majesty sounded between the flowers. No, he can't feel the tracker I implanted for him at all, and those positions won't be easily lost. I definitely think he should have been. The man in the white coat first confidently expressed that there was no problem with his technique, but when he spoke later, he whimpered. Are you killed? What about your research? Didn't you say that his repair ability should not die? Huh. Yim's slightly angry voice rang in the ears of the man in the white coat, and the man in the white coat trembled with fright. Yes, according to the test at the time, it only takes a few seconds to repair the fatal injury. It shouldn't be wiped out, it shouldn't be. What kind of ability is energy efficient? Okay, I don't want to hear your theory. Where is he eliminated? Drez Rosa, Shichibukai, Doflamingo's territory, but he can't kill Mu with his abilities. Even if Mu is not their opponent, it's easy to leave. The man in the white coat started talking again with some theories. Then what is your purpose today? Didn't want to care about this guy who only had research in his mind. She knew that this guy had left her laboratory today and came here not just to tell herself that he was dead. Return to Lord Yim, Mu is already a relatively complete research result on my side. I want to start the next research, not physical transformation, but a person who directly accepts my new way of life. What will happen? Variety. The man in the white coat told Yim the purpose of his coming today. He wanted new research materials that combine the ability and his research. So, you want to study Akainu? After a minute of pause, Im's words rang in his ears again. Yes, after all, he is a perfect fusion of two potions, and he also possesses the ability of Logia fruit, which is perfect research material. No, why? Lord Yim, you have to know that my research has entered the next stage. You didn't let me touch Luo Yi back then, why even this Akainu? Roll. An aura in Wahian drove the man in the white coat out of the research room, and the man in the white coat rolled around on the ground a few times and climbed up embarrassedly. Damn it, I will succeed, I will become. 2 days later, while Luo Yi and others were still floating on the sea, great changes happened again all over the world. After Morgans got the video, he hurriedly produced a newspaper and started publishing it around the world. After all, this is super big news. Monkey D. Luo Yi, who is super bounty, killed Lonely Red, Letterfield. Under the flying of news seagulls, newspapers fly to the world like snowflakes. New world, an island. Boss. A pirate was holding a newspaper in his hand, and hurriedly ran over, panting, this newspaper. Don't be so anxious, you can say something slowly, is there news from Bullet? At this time, in this small area, there were a few people standing or sitting around there. A fat man with sunglasses was biting a piece of meat at this time, chewed it a few times, and swallowed it in his stomach. A man with dreadlocks is maintaining his musket. And a man with a hook nose, with a cigarette holder in his mouth, stood next to a red-haired man. The red-haired man poured a glass of rum with one hand and handed it to the man with the newspaper. The voice was very soft, but it had a calming effect, calming the flustered person. Whenever I think about it, my chest still hurts. Luo Yi has cut me off before, but what is Luo Yi planning to do? Show his fangs to the world. The red-haired Shanks shook his head and handed the newspaper to Beckman next to him. Don't worry, speak slowly. The red-haired Shanks rubbed his chest, and his chest was exposed on the open collar shirt, as if Luo Yi's knife slashed him on his body. The eagle-nosed man was slightly stunned when he heard this. You said that Lonely Red. Dead. That, old man, isn't it Impel down long ago? Etc. Who killed 160? Quote. The red-haired man was also a little dazed, then shook his head and smiled. He reached out his hand to take the newspaper and said, what is Luo Yi doing? Obviously he has already become so powerful that he has to execute the older generation for it. Powerful. He shouldn't be the kind of guy who likes to bully old people. He thanked him, took the glass of wine, took a few sips, took a breath, handed the newspaper over, and said, it's not news from Bullet, boss. Letterfield is dead. He was killed. Quote. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Letterfield. Not only the eternal pointer of the final island appears, the world. But I don't know why he was discovered by this man. He has the ability to solve Letterfield. This news is true. After all, that man was also Marine before. Quote. Shanks raised his head, looked at the sky, and sighed. I don't know how turbulent it should be. That uncle. The photo is the photo of Luo Yi taking the knife and Letterfield down. Beckman took it, glanced carefully, and said, it should be Teach. No, after Blackbeard made an Impel down, Earl Red escaped from the prison. At the same time, the eagle-nosed man standing next to him lowered his head and saw the picture in the newspaper, and said in surprise, it's that man. As soon as he finished saying this, he saw the cover of the newspaper. With just one glance, the red-haired man's pupils shrank, and he subconsciously touched his chest. Luo Yi. Chapter 117. Advertise here. New World, IWC. Mom, big news, Letterfield was killed by a Marine. In an almost dark palace, a long-legged man swallowed and tremblingly passed the newspaper forward. In front of that, a huge face suddenly appeared from the darkness, and the long-legged man looked extremely small under that face. Ryder. Field. The sound is a little slow, it seems to be a memory. Well, the voice laughed. That old guy, is he finally dead? Do you know the news about Bullet and Eternal Pointer? It hasn't appeared yet. Since the battle between Sabayati Archipelago and Shizihao, Douglas Bullet has lost sight in news, but mother, I will find his news as soon as possible. Well, New World, the Island of Ghosts. Rua. The roar was deafening, making the pirates of the Ghost Island silent. That roaring sound is a monster that goes mad again, known as the strongest creature of sea, land, and air, the king of Wano-kuni, beasts, Kaido. Every time he roars like this, someone must be unlucky. That kid, Monkey D. Luo Yi. In a huge cave, Kaido clenched his fists in both hands, exploded with blue veins on his body, and roared wildly there. Its sound waves made the cave tremble extremely fast, and all the pirates in the cave tremble there. On the rock wall, a newspaper was nailed with a dagger, and it was a photo of Luo Yi beheading Letterfield. It's boring, it's so boring. Kaido kicked the wine gourd by his foot, and the gourd flew and hit a pirate's face heavily. The tremendous force made the wine gourd sink deep into the face and flew out with the pirate. Can no one kill Lousy? The voice continued to roar on the island of ghosts. The boss is crazy again, alas. The king stood outside the cave and sighed slowly. The queen beside him also nodded. Since the war on the top, no, it should be after Monkey D. Luo Yi appeared, the boss went crazy more and more frequently, alas. Jack is not there, I can't fool him to be a punching bag. As soon as the words came out, the king and queen looked at each other, then turned their heads and sighed heavily. Father. Marco took the newspaper and came to Whitebeard again. And Whitebeard is teaching Ace somehow to use hockey, such as winding, emission, foreseeing the future, conqueror's winding and so on. Turning his head and no longer looking at Ace, who was lying on the ground, Whitebeard looked at Marco, who was holding the newspaper next to him, and asked, what's the matter? So panic. Is Bullet showing up with the pointer? Marco shook his head. Father, see for yourself. Whitebeard turned to the newspaper and unfolded the huge headline on the front page. Monkey D. Luo Yi kills the lonely Redfield. Close double angle bracket. Lala, it turned out to be so, have you gone too, Letterfield? Whitebeard's voice revealed the decline. After all, there is nothing more uncomfortable than watching old friends of the same era pass away one by one. Daddy. Marco noticed the lonely expression on Whitebeard's face and looked at Whitebeard with some concern. It's okay, Marco, I just have to sigh. The remnants of the old era like me see fewer and fewer remnants, and the arrival of the new era is unstoppable. Daddy. Marineford. Oh. This is really. Admiral office. Kizaru looked at the newspaper in front of him in surprise. It's terrible. I didn't expect that such a big thing would happen again not long ago, Luo Yi. That old fellow Letterfield is quite difficult. Kizaru slowly took out the nail clippers and started to repair his nails. The slow speed made people wonder if he had eaten the slow fruit. However, Sengoku-san should not have time to take care of Luo Yi. 5 days later, it will be the day of the decisive battle. Kizaru looked up at the sky outside the window. Garp office. Garp. Sengoku took the newspaper to Garp's office and opened the door. Garp, who was eating senbei in the office, couldn't help shouting. Kacha. Sengoku. What are you doing here? I won't give you the old man's senbei. Garp was chewing senbei in his mouth and watching Sengoku's arrival. His first reaction was to hide the senbei in his arms. Who wants to eat your senbei? Take a good look, all the senbei you gave birth to have ran out. Can't you live a stable life? Why do you always have to do something big? Sengoku watched Garp's movements, the blue veins on his head violently, picked up the newspaper and threw it on Garp's face. Garp held the senbei in his hand. Just when he picked up the newspaper, the senbei in his arms was snatched by Sengoku. Ah, old man's senbei. After watching Sengoku open his mouth wide and eat all the senbei in the bag, Garp also angrily unfolded the newspaper and read it. In an instant, the atmosphere in the office solidified. Garp couldn't help sighing. Sengoku swallowed a large amount of senbei in his mouth and said, Ladefield is dead, and another legend on the sea is gone. Sakazuki is recommended by the world government. Sengoku, why do you recommend Kuzan? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Garp said with a sullen face, and said in a low tone, yes, there is one less person in our era. The old era is slowly being eliminated by the world. Okay. However, several things have happened recently, whether it is the eternal pointer of the ultimate island or Luo Yi beheading Letterfield. Well, he really is hiding something from us. Sengoku paused, then continued. Hey, there are still 5 days, but I always feel a little bad. Although his starting point is good, he is too paranoid. If he becomes Marine Marshal, the turmoil in the world will become more serious, and he will not let Luo Yi go easily. Quote. Listening to Sengoku's words, how could Garp not understand that Sengoku still cares more about Luo Yi, but his position makes him, Marine and Luo Yi stand on the opposite side. Oh, it can only be recognized by Kuzan himself. As for Kuzan, his way of dealing with the king is more suitable for the next Marine, at least in my opinion Kuzan is more suitable than Sakazuki, and he and Luo Yi are still good friends. Sakazuki's justice is a bit too much. He has involved civilians in the process of eliminating pirates more than once. Garp remembered Sakazuki's abnormal ability at the time. The arms and calves that were cut off by Luo Yi were unexpectedly reopened after losing control of their ability. The matter of Luo Yi, the world government will not end easily. Now it is suspended just because Marine is about to change the marshal. Hearing Sengoku's words, Garp nodded. Sengoku also remembered the purple light flashing in Akainu's eyes recently. To a certain extent, it can slow down the murderous intent of the people in the world towards Luo Yi. It's a good thing. Chapter 118. Advertise here. New World. At this time, the weather in the sea area was good. Luo Yi moved a recliner to lie on the deck, drank cigar in his left hand, and grabbed Momosegi's snacks from time to time. What a pleasure. YF2F. Hey, don't touch my snacks, kill you. After being snatched by Luo Yi for the second snack, Momosegi finally hugged his snack bag unbearably and shouted viciously. It doesn't matter if you eat a little bit. Luo Yi smiled and said, taking a sip of the cold drink with his backhand, but at this time the cold drink has bottomed out. Robin, the cold drink is gone, go get me a glass. He said to Robin next to him. Robin, who was reading the historical text, pushed the glasses on his face, opened his mouth, and hesitated. That, Mr. Luo Yi, I am a woman anyway. She wanted to say this a long time ago, but she couldn't bear it this time. They are not the servants who serve tea and water. Although you say that you are Luo Yi's subordinate now, you can't be so shameless. Believe it or not, I'll turn my face with you. Huh, what happened then? Luo Yi asked in confusion. No, it's okay, I'll get it. Robin pursed his mouth, took up the empty cup with a strong smile, and turned to walk towards the galley inside the ship, but he missed Sanji, a man who was actually a decent man LSP. If he was at 160, how could he do this? Matter. You bullied her again. Momosegi looked at Luo Yi helplessly. I'm not. Don't talk nonsense, I'm just, Luo Yi was just thinking about it, but suddenly he looked at the sea and said in amazement. No, why is this old man here? Quote. On the sea surface, the outlines of several ships faintly appeared, and among those ships, the sight and color could perceive a very powerful aura, which was shining like the light of night. That breath is not small. The outline of the ship gradually appeared. It was a few large warships, which were sailing towards this side. The head of an old man with purple hair, wearing a cloak, was standing on the bow. Ms. Zephyr, Momosegi exclaimed, put down the snacks, stood up and looked at the warship in the distance. Zephyr. Robin, who took a cold drink, pushed down his glasses, glanced at the back of Momosegi who was walking towards the stern, and said, Mr. Luo Yi, shall we go there? It's the old man after all, let's go and take a look. Luo Yi stood up and stretched. Robin noticed that there were some wrinkles on Luo Yi's suit. When he first wanted to talk to Luo Yi, the wrinkles were gone. The clothes can't be messed up. Luo Yi, whose clothes were neat and smooth in an instant, stepped forward and looked at the warship in the distance. Hey, I didn't expect to meet him. Aokiji, drive over to that boat. Zephyr on the boat sensed the familiar atmosphere on the luxurious boat in the distance, and a line at the corner of his mouth ordered the blue-haired beauty beside him to change his position. Hi, Zephyr-sensei. Luo Yi, let me take a look at your changes over the years. Zephyr clasped his chest and sensed Luo Yi's breath. The closer the warship got closer, Luo Yi could see the man standing on the bow clearly. The old man had short purple hair, which was not as erect as he had remembered, and he wore a pair of very gentle glasses, but he was very tall. The burly, right arm has a heavy mechanical arm, which is completely different from the strong and powerful right arm back then. Amidst the vigor, Luo Yi keenly noticed a wave of turmoil in it. As that Zephyr, Robin looked over and swallowed, really an incredible person. Her experience has also increased recently, and now Zephyr is so close. Although he can't feel how strong he is, there is no doubt that he is strong. The kind that can sling her, and the huge robotic arm on Zephyr's right arm. From there, Robin faintly felt a disturbing breath. I'm afraid it is inlaid with sea stone, and there are still a lot of them. Robin still knows about Zephyr's deeds. After all, Luo Yi, who has recently fallen in love with Luo Yi, the world government, is not surprising that Marine brought a group of Vice Admiral and Admiral to chase Luo Yi. Robin's ability to see, hear, and color has grown rapidly, but it is also because Luo Yi has been encountering battles beyond his imagination in the past few days. The explosion of the world's top battles has stimulated the growth of Robin's knowledge and color to some extent. It's not his teaching method that Luo Yi thought. Robin also learned a lot about Marine's top combat power from Momoshiki, many of which are about Zephyr, the predecessor admiral. Marine's elite training camp was opened. It was the teachers of Luo Yi and Momoshiki. The vice admiral and admiral in Marine were mostly Zephyr students. Zephyr treats pirates only by arresting, without killing, and is known as, do not kill, Admiral. 72 years old, he led the recruit camp to train to be attacked by pirates 7 years ago. There were only 2 of the recruits left on the ship. One of his hands was chopped off. 2 years ago, he was fitted with the robotic arm, formed a pirate guerrilla team, hunting pirates everywhere. However, this guerrilla unit is still in the Marine category, which is equivalent to a Marine independent unit. After all, this is a former admiral, a retired person, which is equivalent to a job at Marine, and no one can stop him from doing anything he wants. When the warship docked, a figure jumped out first. The man has a handsome pink haircut and a slender figure. The sausage mouth on his face ruined the beauty. He also wore a cloak. He looked at Luo Yi and 3 people warily. Luo Yi glanced at him and ignored him. Monkey D. Luo Yi, long time no see. A hoarse voice rang out with a little heroic voice. The purple-haired old man on the bow spoke, then jumped from the bow and landed on the ground, smiling at Luo Yi. I heard Kuzan talk about you a few days ago when I returned to the headquarters, from Impel down. After coming out, I had a good fight in the war at the top. Not only Kuzan, Brusaruno and Sakazuki were beaten by you, ha ha ha. Quote. Luo Yi looked at the man who laughed in front of him, and 20 years of time had left obvious marks on this old man, which was completely different from the Zephyr in Luo Yi's impression. Ah, I was really beaten up. For you, it's really been a long time since I saw you, Teacher Zephyr. Luo Yi took a closer look at Zephyr's clothes, and focused his gaze on his right arm device, and Zephyr also noticed that Luo Yi's gaze showed a smile. Yeah, just for me, you are better than anything else now, huh? This right arm, oh, at the time, I lost to someone, that's why. You still that good old man, Teacher Zephyr. Chapter 119. Advertise here. Where is that good old man, Teacher Zephyr? Luo Yi glanced at Zephyr's robotic arm and said pointedly. With Zephyr's strength, although he was old enough to not be able to beat that Whitebeard second generation, he was only incapable of killing and was attacked by the opponent to lose his measure, so he was cut off. Is Zephyr a good old man? No, but he is the person who insists on justice the most. Marine from the past to the present, benevolence and justice, has been the mainstream, among which the most representative ones are Zephyr and Flying Squirrels. Flying Squirrel insists on this justice, catching pirates is rarely killed. He believes that pirates need to be tried and convicted by the law of Enies Lobby, while Marine is only responsible for arresting people. Zephyr, who teaches this justice, is even more so-called, not to kill. He has never killed a pirate, and Luo Yi has not smelled any blood from him. Killing someone is completely different from not killing someone. Yes, it's really. Zephyr looked at the student in front of him, touched the device on his right arm with his left hand, and looked up to the sky. Ms. Zephyr. Al-Ain and the pink-haired man beside Zephyr looked at Zephyr sadly. In other words, why did you come here, Teacher Zephyr? You don't want to kill me. Luo Yi noticed that the atmosphere was a bit depressed, and said jokingly. Ha ha ha, what a joke, you guys will leave Sengoku with a headache, ha ha ha. We have been wandering in the second half, not in the first half, most of the time across the Calm Belt, in West Blue and North Blue, looking for those pirates with threats and potential. Ain said honestly. During this period of time, we were in West Blue and received a letter from the headquarters of the cross-domain Calm Belt and came to the second half to prepare to go. Ain suddenly thought of something and stopped talking. Hey, don't make people's appetites when you speak, school girl. Luo Yi leaned close to Ain's face and said, while Ain looked at Luo Yi's handsome face from a close range, making his face blushing. Well, it doesn't matter if I tell you, Sengoku is going to retire, and Marine is going to decide a new marshal. Zephyr's words promptly let Ain escape from Luo Yi's handsome face attack. Ah, the battle between Akainu and Aokiji, although Akainu was cut off by me. But he was also the one who was injected with that medicine. It's really hard to say whether Kuzan can be beaten or not. Kuzan and Akainu. Luo Yi's words interrupted Zephyr, who wanted to continue speaking. Zephyr showed a hint of curiosity and asked Luo Yi, why do you say that? Why can't it be Bruce Aluno? That person can't do it at all. Luo Yi remembered Kizaru's expression in his mind, and hurriedly waved his hand to drive Kizaru's wretched face away from his mind. Indeed, Kizaru Admiral can't do it at all. Momosuke next to him echoed that in the naval headquarters, who didn't know that Kizaru was a clock in and out of get-off work. It is completely inaccurate to say that he is Marine. He should be an office worker who clocked in and clocked out of Marine. Gion, I didn't expect you to run out with this bastard kid, alas. After seeing Momosuke, Zephyr couldn't help sighing. After all, Momosuke was considered the top student he taught. As for the number one, Zephyr glanced at Luo Yi silently. This bastard's teenage combat power could crush me. If you are still at Marine at this time, don't say anything else. After the new marshal takes office, you still have a good chance to become admiral. After seeing Momosuke shook his head slowly and hugged Luo Yi's arm with happiness, Zephyr also glared at Luo Yi as if his daughter had been snatched away, thinking this would be fine. By the way, these two goods are not going to fight, right? Luo Yi wants to see if history is still developing as usual. Well, it is indeed necessary to use force. This time the world government has participated too deeply. Zephyr nodded. Really? Where? Why should I tell you? Zephyr smiled and rejected Luo Yi's question. After a few people talked for a while, Ain and Bins returned to the warship first, and said lightly when the tactics were about to go back. Luo Yi, as your teacher, I hope you will live a good life in the world from now on. Stop doing those things, go away. Watching Zephyr fly and jump onto the warship, Luo Yi watched his back slowly leaving. It's not that I don't let them go, and they don't want to let me go. Then Luo Yi turned around and looked at Momosuke and Robin and said, let's go to Punk Hazard. No two people explained why. Luo Yi entered the cabin and adjusted the direction of his advancement. The super navigation technology was obtained by Luo Yi just after signing in yesterday. 0. Look for flowers. 5 days later, Punk Hazard is an island in New World that belongs to the world government. Not far from the Red Line. World government is not without power in New World, at least the area close to Red Line is in their master range. This island used to be Marine's research base, and some prisoners of the world government were held. 3 years ago, the experiment of scientist M. Guy Sakuron went wrong, which caused the leakage of poisonous gas, and the island became a dead island, and it was gradually abandoned. At this time, a large number of huge warships gathered around the island, surrounding the island of Punk Hazard in all directions. The number and level of such warships would be eclipsed by the arrival of Buster Call. Among the warships closest to the island, a few named Vice Admirals stood on the deck with solemn expressions. Flying Squirrels, Doberman, Ghost Spiders, Stallo Berry, Fire Mountain. Regardless of the hawkish doves or the middle salted fish faction, the famous Vice Admiral in Marine is now on their respective warships, in charge of one side. Closer, several large warships were docked there. Sengoku was on a warship, holding on to the deck with a heavy face. Garp was standing on the other ship, he didn't have that joking gesture either, he hugged his arms there without saying a word. Next to the one, Crane found a chair on the deck and sat down with his hands crossed on his chin, expressionless, while behind, one was wearing red clothes, showing a pair of long, white legs with a red waist. The beautiful woman with the hilt of the sword is standing behind, originally this position should be Momosuke's position. And the other one dressed in khaki clothes, with a golden belly kabuto around his waist, wearing a cloak, and a cigarette in his mouth, the wretched man with a hat slowly sighed as he looked at the woman. Oh, it's not Momosuke, oh. I blame that bastard Luo Yi. Take away Momosuke. Oh, it's terrible, I was taken away by Luo Yi. Kizaru was on a boat next to him and said, hey. Kizaru brother, what is your tone? Dolphin yelled at Kizaru in the distance. It's nothing. Sengoku looked at the two people on the distant island and said solemnly, don't drag it, dragging won't produce results. As he said, he raised his hand and yelled, let's get started. Yi. Chapter 120. Advertise here. These words made everyone's eyes on the island. Dolphin also looked over, and said suspiciously, isn't it said that this kind of island is all poisonous? I don't know, maybe I eliminated it by myself. Kizaru looked inside the island and said, that kind of thing is not the point now. It has already begun, the big battle that determines Marine's future direction. At this time, Punk Hazard, where is there any poisonous gas, but there is something more terrifying than poisonous gas, inside the island. In the middle of the island, there are two people facing each other. One is wearing a red formal suit, the other is wearing a white vest and a blue shirt. The breeze is floating, blowing the two marine cloaks. Both heard Sengoku's voice. Akainu's eyes moved slightly, and he looked at Aokiji on the opposite side. Kuzan, why are you so fiercely opposed to the old man? Marine should have made a change long ago. I will lead it. It is best thing. Ah la la, but I can't understand yours, the current Marine, it's better to recuperate. Aokiji scratched his head and said. Is that really the case? Akainu said in a deep voice. Aokiji was silent for a while, and slowly said, I can't forget about Ohara. You did too much back then. Justice is not the kind of indiscriminate thing. I can't agree with what Marine gave you. It's just such a small matter. Are you going to give up the fellowship for many years and do it so intensely? Akainu clenched his fist, red color erupting from his hand. Little things. Aokiji exhaled a chill, and frost began to form on his neck, so, I can't get along with you. Boom. From the island of Punk Hazard, an air current of alternating cold and hot suddenly rushed towards the surrounding warships. It's cold. Half of the Marine on the warship hugged his body and shivered. So hot. The other half was sweating quickly all over, as if it had evaporated, the sweat turned into gas, and the hot breath made the space a little distorted. Hey, is it so exaggerated? Smoker stared at the island of Punk Hazard blankly, and couldn't bite the cigar on his mouth. That island completely changed. Countless frost condensed in half of the area, and those frost gradually thickened, forming a thick layer of ice, which spread to the sea very quickly, and the sea near the island quickly condensed into ice. And the other half, like a mountain collapsed and the ground cracked, became a crimson land of purgatory, and the hot breath made the sea near the island boil and bubble. Cold and heat collide, the air current rises, the clear weather suddenly dark clouds press the top, the thunder flickers, and the sky trembles. The climate, terrain, and air have all changed. And this is just a simple collision. In the center of the island, Akainu gushed out of magma and collided with Aokiji, which had all frozen. Kuzan. Akainu roared, lava gushing out of both hands, and hit it straight. Sakazuki. Aokiji was hit by a punch, turned into scattered ice, and then quickly condensed. His figure flashed to Akainu's side, a cone of ice stretched out of his palm, and it stabbed in the past. The cone of ice touched Akainu and instantly condensed ice on Akainu's body. The lava was frozen and turned into black stone. Laugh. But soon, the ice cube evaporated and melted, and a cloud of white steam emitted from Akainu's arm, which gushed out lava again, and struck Aokiji. One is ice and the other is lava. In natural confrontation, it seems difficult to tell the winner. Is it necessary to be so intense at the beginning? This scene is secretly stunned. After all, it's a battle of ideas, it's terrible, this kind of intensity. Kizaru was surprised. Smoker slowly exhaled smoke and looked over to the island. Akainu, Sakazuki, now 54 years old, is now in full heyday. Aokiji, Kuzan, 48 years old, although he is younger, he is a monster, after all. Everyone was systematically trained by Marine, and they were all taught by Zephyr. Together with Marine's other training, their abilities, hockey, and physical skills are all in the same state. Even swordsmanship is actually not much worse. Sakazuki knows swordsmanship, and Kuzan knows how, but he can't cut Luo Yi. This has to go on, and according to this serious situation, it's not a situation that can tell the winner for a while. Boom. Bang bang. After a series of abilities, the two sides on the island opened up a distance. Great eruption. Akainu's arm gushed out lava, the lava turned into a huge fist shape, and hit Aokiji with one punch. Even facing an iceberg dozens of times larger than this fist, this move can instantly evaporate cleanly. Aokiji took a step back, stretched out one hand 90 degrees, pointed at Akainu like a knife, and said coldly, the pheasant's mouth. The cold air formed a huge ice bird, rushing towards the outstretched lava fist with an unparalleled impact. Wherever the ice bird passed, the ground that was already on the ice surface was frozen again into a layer of ice, which collided with the lava fist. Boom. One red and one white collided, the hot and cold air currents rose again, and several lightning bolts suddenly smashed down, falling within the range of the two. Even thunder cannot hurt both sides who are both natural. The bodies of Akainu and Aokiji were submerged by sudden lightning that was as thick as a bucket. Only for a moment, in the lava field behind Akainu, his body slowly condensed from the ground, while the other shattered into ice crystals, and then condensed on the ice. One is just a natural phenomenon, and these two represent the personification of natural phenomena, of course they are incomparable. Boom boom boom. The blasted ice bird ice cubes and the exploded lava fists, at this time, turned into volcanic bombs and large ice cubes around, and scattered towards the sea. Oops. These things are coming. Quick, run away. The Marines shouted in panic. What a joke, if these things landed, the ship would sink. What is noisy? The ghost spider shouted. The weak will step back. You can't support this little scene. How can you be qualified to watch the battle? Oh, it's really scary. Kizaru raised his eyes to the sky and called out. Hey, Kizaru brother, why don't you make a move? Dolphin scratched his head and said. The old man can't make a move, it will cause misunderstanding. Although other people can do it, it is more convenient for you. After all, you are also an admiral candidate. You can use it. Kizaru smiled. In this situation, don't hide it. You can't just let my old lady go and stop it. Crane said lightly from the side. I just came to watch the battle. This scene made the marine generals who had never seen a T-dolphin attack open their eyes. Luo Yi should be admiral right now, and even this battle doesn't need to happen. Luo Yi can be the marshal directly. Dolphin. He still admires Luo Yi, but he means that he hates iron but not steel. He has lost too much for a short time, if he could bear it back then. Bang bang bang. That's the true strength of the T-dolphin. Why can't I even handle a few tricks when I meet Luo Yi? Sengoku asked in surprise. Damn you, haven't you been beaten yourself? The other vice admiral smiled bitterly if they didn't. So, that guy Luo Yi is scary. The ice cubes and volcanic bombs smashed past, hitting the wild boar's body, like a barrier, and the force of the wild boar produced an impact and was shattered. Hearing the voices of colleagues discussing, Mole's hand subconsciously supported the hilt of the knife. A huge group of wild boar phantoms consisted of many bullets, covering the front of these ships. Oh, roar, this is really spectacular. Kizaru pretended to be surprised and looked up. The T-dolphin is really reliable. But Luo Yi is really scary looking like this. Speaking of it, at the time of 5.7 at the top of the war, he hadn't seen any outstanding performance of the T-dolphin, and Luo Yi gave him a second when he came up. T-dolphin sighed slightly, and then drew out his weapon, took out the revolver with armament hockey in his left hand, and shot it at the flying volcano bomb and ice cubes. Luo Yi, thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. The ghost spider looked at the T-dolphin that was blocking the volcanic bomb and ice cubes. Among their vice admiral, the T-dolphin is undoubtedly an apex existence. Even so, he couldn't catch Luo Yi's tricks. Chapter 121. Advertise here. On the sea tens of thousands of meters away from Punk Hazard, a luxury boat is advancing fast. On the deck, Robin and Momosuke are looking at the distant sky. The dark clouds are densely covered. The thunder flashes and jumps in the dark clouds. The red and blue rays of light will the world is divided into two parts. What's that? It always feels terrifying over there. Robin folded his arms and looked at the distant scenery. The awakened observation hockey made Robin feel the hairs standing up even when he looked there. It should be that the battle between Aokiji Admiral and Akainu Admiral has begun, but Luo Yi, there should be surrounded by many Marines now. If you want to pass, you will have to fight the Marines again. Momosuke remembered the conversation between Luo Yi and Zephyr a few days ago. Luo Yi unexpectedly guessed the location of the Admiral duel, but what did Luo Yi want to do in the past? Luo Yi, who just got out of the cabin, looked at Momosuke. It's nothing, I used to join in the fun, I also have a way to prevent those Marines from approaching me, you two just pay attention to it, and… Luo Yi remembered the medicine in his hand and said. I have to save the life of that guy Kuzan. I was separated from Sakazuki for 4 or 6. It's hard to say now, and I miss my old father too. Robin 09 and Momosuke looked at Luo Yi's strange smile and couldn't help but fought a cold battle. Around Punk Hazard, Garp was watching the battle on the Sengoku warship. Suddenly, an excited spirit smacked his lips and looked towards the sky. The climate is changing and it's not good, I'm afraid I will catch a cold after a long time. Are you kidding? Garp-san. Kizaru on the nearby battleship said lightly, turning his head to his adjutant. Watch it well, it's rare to see people at this level fighting. The name monster is terrible to ordinary people, but for them, the word monster is praise. But there are not many people who can be called monsters in Marine's career. At present, there are only 3 of them in Marine, which can be called monster. Luo Yi is no longer Marine, and monster is not enough to describe him. Above the ocean, there are indeed not many scenes where the 3 of them can take full action. At the top of the war, most of the time, Akainu alone fought everything. Many other people, such as Garp, Sengoku, and Kizaru himself, are paddling. If it hadn't been for the world government to order a collective siege of Luo Yi, Kizaru felt that after a whole battle with the Whitebeard pirates, the clothes would get dirty. So in fact, it is rare to say that 2 admiral will fight at the same time with all their strength. But many vice admiral escorts around don't really want to watch this duel. Most of them are walking hockey combined with physique and swordsmanship. Natural fruits are not the same type among Akainu and Aokiji. Moreover, hockey and physique are not something that can be understood by just looking at them, and it is impossible to enhance them if they have not fought personally. Moreover, at the level of Admiral, what else can you do besides grinding? There may be a gap in combat power at this level, but even 4 Emperors is only slightly stronger than Admiral. The top combat power at sea takes many days to fight. Except for the monster Luo Yi, who can come up and fight with Admiral level combat power, it will soon severely hurt Admiral level combat power. The Vice Admiral level can't do 2 tricks in the hands of Luo Yi, a monster. They came here mainly to prevent Akainu and Aokiji from fighting for a few days and then being lost by others. Which one do you think will win? Kizaru looked at the nervous smoker and asked curiously. Kizaru knew that the relationship between Smoker and Aokiji was still very good, otherwise he would not have rushed up when Aokiji was suppressed by Luo Yi. I don't know. Smoker spit out the cigar head and reignited too. Now, I can't see anything. He really can't see anything. There is a big gap between the development level of his fruit ability and the development level of the 2 admirals, and in his opinion, the fierce fighting on both sides of the battlefield is in a state of ease at this time. If the physical strength is worn away, it is not clear who is better and who is inferior. Kizaru Admiral, what do you think? Smoker asked Kizaru with his cigar in his mouth. Sakazuki. Kizaru looked towards the center of the island and said, Kuzan is still a little younger, and Sakazuki seems to have gotten something after that battle. From time to time, he will. But I don't know until the last moment. Really? Smoker bit his cigar, shaking his head slightly in his heart. Are they all so optimistic about Akainu? But I want to come. He himself felt that it would be better for the sea to be more intense now. After Luo Yi's bounty event and the appearance of the permanent mark pointer of the final island, the pirates on the sea have been confused, and Marine has to make a change. Although he consciously and Kuzan can talk more, he can get along more comfortably. But when it comes to handling the pirates, he is actually on the side of Akainu. In his opinion, the pirates can kill as soon as they can, the pirates like Straw Hat Boy. If he had been killed in Logue Town early, there would not be so many things in the future. The dog bites the red lotus. Akainu's arm turned into lava and stretched towards Aokiji suddenly. The lava's head was broken into a hideous dog skull shape, and his mouth opened. This trick is really biting. 2 thorn spears. Aokiji opened his hands, condensed a large number of ice spears in the air, and shot it at the dog-biting Gurren. Boom. The lava melted the ice, and the cold air also froze the lava, igniting blazing gas. Logia, of course, there is no hockey attachment, and there is no need for that kind of thing, they are the representatives of power. The fruit of Akainu is the most powerful single fruit in the world. The fruit of Aokiji should be regarded as the most powerful fruit in the world. Freezing time capsule. The blow was cancelled, and Aokiji stretched out his hand, letting out a cloud of cold air from a long distance, and pounced on Akainu. The speed was not slow, and Akainu was quickly frozen by the cold air and became an ice sculpture. At this moment, Aokiji touched the ground with one hand, exhaling a cloud of cold air, Ice Age. A large amount of freezing, centered on Aokiji, quickly spread to the surrounding area. The ice sculpture didn't last for a while before it melted away, revealing Akainu's body in the form of lava. His hands were raised, and a large number of lava fists gushed out from his fists. Meteor volcano. Just like a volcanic eruption, a lava fist the size of the previous, great eruption, fell from the sky, and the heat of the lava on the ground evaporated before it even got close to the ground. But soon, the evaporated ground froze again, and its 160 air conditioning faintly affected the lava fists above, reducing their power a bit. Boom boom boom. A large number of lava fists fell to the ground. This instinctive blow that could easily destroy the island was under the action of the ice surface. It only melted the ice, blowing the pits on the ground along the way, and then the melted ice surface refloated and fell on the lava fist on the ground was sealed by ice. So back and forth, entangled endlessly. A large number of lava fists, mixed with a large hail of cold air, slammed on the giant wild boar phantom formed by the continuous attack of the T-Dolphin, and the phantom formed by the T-Dolphin was trembling constantly. Slowly, the T-Dolphin's wild boar phantom was smashed into small cracks by the continuous lava fists and huge ice blocks. Bump. The crack grew bigger and bigger, and with a crisp sound, the wild boar phantom shattered, and the fist of lava and iceberg-like ice fell towards the warship. Oh, it's terrible. Kizaru raised his head and glanced, his body suddenly flashed in the air, his hands folded into an OK shape, emitting a lot of laser light. Bakichong Guyu. The dense laser bombs rushed into the sky, splitting all the lava fists and ice cubes, and gradually disappeared under the laser, but some were still falling. Fist Bones Gale. Garp on the Sengoku warship stretched out his right hand with 5 fingers, squeezed his fist, twisted his waist and shook out. From the fist that Garp shook, a cracking wind suddenly blew out, stirring the surrounding air, and the small volcano that would land down. The bullets and ice were blown away, allowing them to land in the distant sea around the warship. You bastards! Pay attention to your surroundings. Garp yelled loudly to the 2 fighting people on the island. Chapter 122. Advertise here. The 2 people on the island ignored Garp's yelling. These 2 big moves completely ignored the surrounding situation, and all AoE was released. However, where will they hear it? Don't look at each one with ease, this one turns into lava and the other turns into ice. But the attention is on the other side, and if you are not careful, the damage you receive is not just a little bit. Alternating cold and hot, icy and fire surging, the topography of the island changed, and the thunder in the sky fell like rain under this stimulus. A good island, now it is completely invisible. This has only been fighting for a while. If it takes a long time. Garp looked at the sky, I'm afraid the climate will change completely. The power of the strong, change the world. Keep the warship away. Sengoku sighed and said, except for the ships above Vice Admiral, the other attached warships should stay farther away, and the medical ship will stay. Pelusalino, please take a look. Okay, Sengoku-san, it's really troublesome. Kizaru landed on the boat, and the voice in front of him when he answered Sengoku was still loud. But the sound of the next sentence can only be heard clearly by the people around Kizaru teaching it. The adjutant next to Kizaru tugged at the corner of his mouth, glanced sideways at the wretched old man, and did not answer. Everyone could smell a fierce breath just looking outside the island. The nearby sea beasts had already run away and didn't know where they were going. Sakazuki. Aokiji yelled Akainu's name, and huge icicles rose from Aokiji's smaller size. The icicles were rapidly advancing in size and became huge, quickly rushing to the opposite Akainu. Kuzan. Akainu also slammed a terrifying magma fist with both fists and smashed Aokiji's icicles. The magma collided with the ice and produced huge steam. The drastic temperature difference caused the two people's attack to erupt with a terrifying aura, boom. The huge storm blew the cloaks of the two people, and Aokiji and Akainu kept releasing their abilities against each other, as the ice and magma collided. In an instant, the figures of the two people disappeared, and the ice sword and the giant magma fist collided with each other, forming air bursts everywhere in the air. Abilities, hockey, and physical skills have been continuously converted one after another. On the island, only white and red can be seen constantly colliding, and occasionally there are loud shouts. The people on the beach looked at the people in the distance looking at the island, and never let down their vigilance. As long as there are threats around, the high-end combat power of these marines will help solve them. Sengoku sighed and said, but depending on the situation, this day cannot be over. Okay. Garp nodded in agreement. After all, at this level, stamina is at the monster level. Ice Age. Aokiji released the Ice Age to block Akainu's attack. His chest was constantly rising and falling, breathing heavily, and people who didn't want to pay attention to imagine, Aokiji's physical exertion far exceeded their imagination. What's the matter? This guy Sakazuki went up and tried desperately. Aokiji took advantage of Akainu's inability to quickly pass through the air conditioning gap, and took the opportunity to adjust his breathing. In his mind, he really had huge doubts about Akainu's fighting style. The battle that just started was normal, and there was little difference in the development of their abilities, and no one could quickly suppress each other. But just after the close combat, Akainu's operation made Aokiji lose his head. Akainu frantically exchanged an injury for an injury. Aokiji was caught off guard and lost his first opportunity, resulting in an accidental shot by Akainu in the chest. Although it escaped from elementalization in time, it was still invaded by the terrifying heat of magma, and if it continued like this, it would fall into a disadvantage. Can't just sit and wait like this. After taking a deep breath, Aokiji released the Ice Age in one breath, gathering his hands on his chest. Sakazuki. Aokiji roared, turned into crampons with one hand, and quickly grabbed Akainu's face. Kuzan. Lava burst out of Akainu's fist, forming a pair of lava claws, which blasted towards Aokiji very quickly. Dark Hound. Boom. The crampons left two gaps in Akainu's face, punching a gap in his ears. At the same time, the extremely fast lava claws blasted towards Aokiji's chest. At this critical moment, Aokiji turned to the left and saw the claws of lava hit Aokiji's armed legs, but he was still hit by Akainu's terrifying power. Half of Akainu's frozen body also shook, clenching his fists, looking at Aokiji who was rising from a distance with a complicated expression. You asshole. I didn't want to be like this. What? Aokiji, who had just gotten up, looked at Akainu, who was trembling. His words also made Aokiji a little questionable what it means to not want this. Then Aokiji saw that Akainu's eyes were full of purple light. What is that? In Aokiji's sight, Akainu's cheek, which had been scratched by himself, was repairing the wound with the naked eye. The flesh and blood grew and connected together, and the skin was covered with it. After a while, Akainu, who could not see the wound at all, reappeared in front of Aokiji's eyes. Allah, it doesn't seem to be the fruit of Logia, but the fruit of zone that I want to awaken, Sakazuki. Aokiji pretended to be surprised and said to Akainu, but he thought of a lot of things in his heart. This should be the reason why Akainu was obviously cut off by the bastard Luo Yi's left arm and calf, but after we tracked Luo Yi back, Sakazuki was intact. It would be bad if it went on like this. Try to survive, Kuzan. Great eruption. The purple light in Akainu's eyes became stronger and stronger, and the expression on his face became more and more ferocious. Seeing the giant magma fist hitting in front of him, Aokiji had to let go of the thoughts in his head and concentrate on the battle before him. Ice Thorn Spear. Aokiji opened his hands, condensed a large number of ice spears in the air, and shot it at the dog-biting Gurren. But the scene that happened next made Aokiji's eyes wide open, and his ice spear was directly melted by a giant magma dog like a pebble hitting a rock. The power has become stronger. The Ice Age. Realizing that something was wrong, Aokiji once again released his own stunts. A large amount of freezing, centered on Aokiji, quickly spread to the surrounding area, and the giant magma dog that Akainu attacked was directly frozen. However, Akainu himself turned into a magma assault and came to Aokiji's side. His hands turned into magma, and he attacked Aokiji in claws. Aokiji couldn't keep away from the distance and had no choice but to fist and fist with Akainu. However, Akainu's reckless play of injury for injury is that Aokiji has more and more wounds on his body, and the pain caused by the burning makes Aokiji's spirits relax a little. Aokiji, whose concentration had dropped, accidentally exposed a flaw, and then was caught by the sharp-eyed Akainu, and hit the chest with a punch and flew out. Akainu, with a purple light in his eyes, looked at Aokiji who was flying upside down, with a fierce force on his legs, and the whole person rushed forward. It's near, as long as one last time, I can defeat him and become the new marshal. Seeing Aokiji, who was just a few short of his body shape. A frenzy flashed in Akainu's purple eyes, but a murderous intent surged in his heart without knowing it. At the same time, his body also carried all the strength of his whole body, the king's ready to launch the final attack. The other side. Damn, it's still a little bit. Aokiji flew upside down, and the corner of his eyes looked at Akainu who was chasing over quickly. On the surface, he was calm, but in his mind he roared frantically. He wanted to change this situation, but the injuries Akainu caused to him and the burning wound on his chest made him temporarily unable to resist, and even the power to stop in the air was gone. And when he thought that he was about to be defeated by Akainu, Akainu would also ascend to the position of marshal. Aokiji, who had decided to compete for the position of marshal only after seeing what Akainu did, gave birth to a trace of despair in the bottom of his heart. He knows that his life will not be in danger. After all, although the two are politically at odds and have completely opposite personalities, they also have decades of colleague affection. Akainu will not kill him. But suddenly he sensed Akainu's killing intent, and this killing intent from Akainu made Aokiji have no choice but to be stunned. Question mark. He wants to kill me to admit it. But when the two were getting closer and Aokiji was able to see the crazy color on Akainu's face, an accident happened. Boom. Chapter 123. On the sea, many marine generals are standing on the warships, perceiving the battle on the island. The two admiral battles are expected to be won after a few days of continuous battles. As a result, after everyone watched Akainu suppress Aokiji with injury for injury, everyone was shocked by Akainu's fighting style. Sengoku. What's going on with Sakazuki's fighting method is completely different from before. Garp. It feels full of hostility. Oh, it's terrible. What, Sakazuki, can Kuzan resist this state? Kizaru said with a yin and yang cocked mouth. Okay. All the high-end fighters nearby looked up to the sky, and a black meteor in the sky smashed towards the place where Aokiji and Akainu were fighting. This scene is so familiar. This scene suddenly appeared in the hearts of all those who had participated in the top war. Boom. What? Akainu looked at the man blocking her fist and couldn't help but shouted in surprise. The face that was distorted by the killing intent was slightly restored to normal due to shock. You are. Aokiji fell to the ground, reluctant to get up and quickly looked up at the person in front of him who helped him block the fatal attack, a black suit fluttering in the wind. Luo Yi. Whether it is Akainu, Aokiji, or Garp on the sea in the distance, War 163, etc., they are shouting the names of men in suits. Do you all think of me that way? Luo Yi. Akainu was once again conquered by the killing intent, and magma burst on the top of his fist. Okay. Bump. After Luo Yi kicked Akainu flying with his leg raised, he glanced at Akainu whose eyes were purplish, folded his hands together, and a huge 8 trigrams formation appeared on the ground under his feet. Kanzi Luoshan. Aokiji's eyes seemed to see a woman in a strange costume appearing behind Luo Yi, but it seemed to disappear in an instant. The sea around the Punk Hazard Island suddenly rose, forming a giant water wall tens of meters thick, directly blocking Kizaru, who was about to rush over by the elementalization. This is really scary. The light spots regrouped and Kizaru retreated. Looking at the huge wall made of seawater in front of him, Kizaru couldn't help swallowing, but luckily he didn't rush in just now. Otherwise, if you are swept by the waves, even you can't hold it. Luo Yi. Garp looked vaguely at Luo Yi on the island through the water wall. What the hell does this brat want to do? Order. Let the capable warship retreat, and then exit within a few kilometers. Sengoku was intimidated by Luo Yi's ability to control the sea. If this F*K was photographed just now, I don't know how many people will die on these warships. Really a monster. Yeah, Luo Yi could still feel his breath before, but now he feels like looking at an invisible abyss with an ant. Can you handle sea water? Can devil fruit? It's not like it, but Luo Yi actually knows this technique in addition to the world's top hockey, swordsmanship, and physique. What to do? I don't know. Wait for Marshal Sengoku's order. Many Vice Admiral people looked at Luo Yi's hand and said that their pants were wet. It's okay, Kuzan. Luo Yi looked back at Kuzan, who was all over his body. The original white pants and cloak had been burned to black and gray. There is also a deep bone wound on the chest. It's miserable. Allah, it is. Luo Yi. Akainu's yelling came from behind Luo Yi, and the hoarse voice could only be heard a little bit of Akainu's feeling, which made people feel more like a beast-like roar. What's wrong with Sakazuki? Aokiji, who was freezing his chest, looked at the purple light in his eyes in the distance, and panted Akainu and asked Luo Yi. It should have been done by the world government, you should stay away first, now you can be regarded as a monster. After Luo Yi spoke to Aokiji, he rushed to Akainu. Luo Yi. Although his sanity was affected by the new formula of life potion, it does not mean that Akainu really didn't pay attention to Luo Yi's attack. He lifted the molten right foot and stepped his feet toward the ground. Compared to wood, although Akainu is also affected by the medicine, it is not completely turned into a beast, but the killing intent in his heart has been enlarged a lot, so I just wanted to kill Aokiji. Luo Yi, who kicked Akainu into the air, said lightly. Dispelling the ace attack, Akainu stepped on angrily, and the figure burst out. The long-standing right fist suddenly blasted out, and a continuous flow of molten slurry gushed out. In the blink of an eye, Akainu lifted a dozen meters of huge fist and blasted towards the remaining. Luo Yi in the largest flame group. Question mark. The sturdy magma column rushes into the flame, and the huge impact force easily tears the raging flame to pieces. The magma column collides with the flame, and the result is that the magma has the upper hand. Question mark. Accelerating the forward pace, Luo Yi took a flaming fire belt, and leapt forward. Ace raised his fist, and the void flames gushing out, converging into a huge flame fist, accompanied by Luo Yi's movements, and blasted towards Akainu. Puff puff, puff puff. Several alarms came out, and the molten slurry gushed out from the cracks. The rising molten slurry fell on the ground like a curtain. The hard ground was melted, and the feet turned into a piece. Molten slurry. With a loud shout, Akainu raised his fist and blasted out, and the lava lake under his feet was drawn, and the molten lava rose from the lava lake. The hot molten lava formed a series of hot spears and shot towards Luo, who was rushing over. Yi. In the lava rain caused by the impact, Akainu, who was covered in magma, flew upside down, spouting mouthfuls of scarlet blood floating in the void, and his face became even more pale. Question mark. With a loud noise, the terrifying flame did not have much resistance when facing the molten metal, and it was quickly torn apart. The impact of the collision turned into a substantial hurricane and swept down from high altitude. The hurricane that swept over was thought to be a large mountain pressing on Aokiji not far away, and the surrounding ice that had been frozen by Aokiji before. Akainu's feet on the ground turned into magma into the ground. In a moment, terrible power gushed out through both feet. The ground was trembling, the ground shook, pieces of small gravel were constantly beating, and the ground collapsed. The huge crack has spread around Akainu as the center, and there is no end in sight. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. The flame that covered the sky and the ground like a sky curtain, after dozens of molten pillars attacked, and a loud bang, the red flame was torn apart, and the sky returned to dimness again. Li Zi, Huo Fist. Luo Yi. Aokiji couldn't help screaming for a lifetime. Just now, Akainu's attack was far more powerful than Aokiji's impression of Akainu's power. Bump. Oh, I just forgot to change directions. Suddenly it was lifted out by the storm, and there was a strong wind, and even the hard rocky ground began to shatter, and pieces of rubble were blown up. Chapter 124. Advertise here. Position. Aokiji in the distance didn't know what Luo Yi's mumbled words meant. But Aokiji noticed that Akainu, who was kicked by Luo Yi and vomiting blood, walked toward Luo Yi again unscathed. Luo Yi. Strong magma burst out of Akainu's body, wrapped around Akainu's giant fist, and the terrifying temperature caused the earth around Akainu to melt away. The temperature is much higher than before. It seems that the potion works pretty well. It will not only heal wounds quickly, but also increase strength. Let's see how far it can be. Quote. Luo Yi lightly stepped on the ground with his right foot, and only Luo Yi could see an 8 trigrams array with a radius of hundreds of meters spreading out from the center of him. The 8 trigrams array was spinning rapidly and stopped on top of the word Li. Li Zi Zhu Rong. Boom. Akainu's blow, comparable to a volcanic eruption, covered Luo Yi's original location, and a radius of 100 meters was completely transformed into a world of magma. This crazy blow Akainu didn't have any strength to stay, and it erupted with full force. Luo Yi. Aokiji yelled out in a panic from a distance. In his opinion, Akainu's attack was very strong, far exceeding the strength he exerted in the fight against him. If it were his own, he could only dodge, avoid and not resist. Hey! Akainu's hideous face just showed a smile, a fist wrapped in flames slammed into his eye sockets, and the terrifying force wrapped around the hot flames to directly knock Akainu into the air, and Akainu's head was also in the air shattered. A huge force threw the melted ground up flying through the ground. At this time, Aokiji saw the scene just covered by heavy smoke. Luo Yi in a black suit was surrounded by flames, and the red flames turned Luo Yi's black hair. Dyed orange red. This is flame. Did Luo Yi eat Mara fruit? But isn't that the fruit of Fire Fist Ace? Did Luo Yi kill the other party during this period of time? No, Luo Yi saved him. What is going on? And Luo Yi just controlled the sea water, isn't it Devil Fruit's ability? Or something that hasn't appeared before? Aokiji in the distance looked at Luo Yi's flaming power, and all kinds of complicated thoughts in his brain immediately filled his brain, unable to react for a while. Luo Yi glanced at Akainu, who was slowly climbing up. The disappeared head was quickly recovering in the form of magma. Luo Yi frowned and sensed that the surrounding seawater protection wall was being attacked by marine vice admirals. Soon. It's about to pass. The 8 trigrams at the foot rotated again and stopped on top of the ridge. Kanzi Shui Luwu. Luo Yi waved his right arm at the rising sea water, and the sea wall quickly rotated in the direction that Luo Yi's arm was waving, and swept many vice admiral into the ocean current with flying slashes. What? Can you control the flow of seawater? Luo Yi. With this level of control, is there a devil fruit that manipulates the sea on the ocean? It's terrible. You Vice Admiral looked at the swirling sea water in front of you, the speed was too terrifying, even though they were not demon fruit power at this time. But it can't directly pass through the sea currents of this speed, and if you forcibly break in, you can only die. What? While Luo Yi was controlling the rotation of the sea water, Akainu, which had been repaired, once again gathered strength and activated his ability against Luo Yi. Akainu, who rushed past, waved a giant lava fist, raised it high and smashed it at Luo Yi again. Ah! Facing the angry blow of Akainu, Luo Yi did not choose to dodge. The 8 trigrams array on the ground spun quickly, and the flames that ignited again on his hands were compressed to the ultimate armament hockey instant coverage, and his fist showed a black and red glow. Of mixed colors. Luo Yi just wanted to know what the effect of that potion on Akainu was and what its effect was, so he chose the flame to fight Akainu. Flame and magma, the temperature of the entire island battlefield soared at this moment, and the two did not deliberately act on it. But the aftermath of the attack has already caused the ice that had just been frozen by Aokiji to melt dozens of degrees below zero, and even the ground under the ice. At the beginning, the two were still entwined with flames and magma in close hand-to-hand combat, but as time passed, the ground battlefield was no longer enough to support the battle between the two sides and slowly melted into magma, and Akainu followed the ground magma to activate his fruit ability. The purple light in the eyes deepened again. Luo Yi perceives that Akainu's power is increasing again, and it is also constantly increasing the temperature and power of the flame. At this moment, the two of them no longer have to deliberately control their own power. The Lizzie Flame ability has completely exploded, and the flames transformed from orange to crimson surround Luo Yi's body, setting themselves off like flames. Lord Kun controls all the flames in the world. On the other side, Akainu's expression became even more terrifying, even distorted to the point of a ghost. His eyes exuded purple light, and his arms had already turned into crimson lava, and occasionally flashed purple lava exuding terrifying hot heat. The space around the body even becomes slightly distorted as a result. 0. Look for flowers. The place that Luo Yi had just injured with hockey was intact, and it was completely unclear that the skin and flesh had just exploded. The recovery ability is not weaker than that of the guy named Mew, and he can recover his injuries when he is elementalized. This is too pervert. Luo Yi sighed, the flame jet entwined behind him, and the powerful thrust caused Luo Yi to burst out of ultimate speed in an instant, and he arrived in front of Akainu in the blink of an eye. Li Zi Sanwei Shinso. Lava and flames erupted in the next moment, and the giant flame spear instantly passed through Akainu's lava giant fist. After the magma giant fist, Akainu was also not much better, and was bombarded by the giant flame spear half of his body. Boom. It's not over yet. A figure in the smoke flew out with Kabuto inserted in it. Luo Yi stood outside the smoke and watched a humanoid liquid emitting red light inside the smoke slowly standing up. That shape can no longer be called a human. Great eruption. The terrifying power of the two people caused a trace of cracks in the space between the two fists. In the process of complaining, Luo Yi sensed the goosebumps behind him, turned around, twisted his waist and punched the figure coming from behind. Luo Yi suddenly burst into front of Akainu, with his right hand wrapped around Conqueror's hockey and armament hockey, hammering Akainu's face into the ground. Luo Yi smiled at the figure on the opposite side. Click. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. But what was flying in the air was not Akainu's blood but fiery flowing magma. The ground was shattered by terrifying force, and the ground in a radius of 100 meters cracked and flew away, and the violent smoke blocked Akainu and Luo Yi in the center. Seeing Akainu, who was moving like the opposite sex in the smoke, Luo Yi couldn't help but spit out. What is this? Has the potion changed a species, the opposite sex? Terminator. When the distance was only a few meters, a giant flame gun that was several meters long took shape in Luo Yi's hand quickly and threw it at Akainu. Facing Luo Yi's attack, Akainu is also positive and tough. Now he is affected by the medicine and has no idea of retreating. Even if there is him, he may not retreat. Okay, come, Yi. Chapter 125. Advertise here. Okay. The person who replied was an old man with gray hair. His sturdy arms were even thicker than Luo Yi's waist. The powerful force continued to suppress Luo Yi who fisted. It's been a long time, Uncle Kong. Luo Yi's faint words sounded in the other party's mind. Just when he was about to say something to Luo Yi's fist suddenly surged with formidable force and knocked the brawny man into the air. After sliding for more than 10 meters on the ground, the brawny man forced his feet into the ground to stop the retreat. A white cloak was floating in the wind behind him, but it was not in the style of marine. The visitor was the current marshal of the armed forces, Kong Kong. Kong Kong glanced at Aokiji, who was seriously injured in the distance, and Akainu, who was slowly regaining his adult form in the smoke. Kong Kong smashed his fists together, and the surrounding air was shaken by his powerful aura. The terrifying concentration made Kong Kong feel awkward. 163's energy was all concentrated on Luo Yi. Luo Yi noticed that there were some water droplets on Kong Kong's body, and silently sensed the sea vortex, and found that no one else passed through the sea vortex. Uncle Kong, how did you come in? Hearing Luo Yi's question, Kong Kong answered directly without thinking. My body was covered with armament hockey, and Garp threw me in. Such a reckless, rude man. After hearing the answer, Luo Yi couldn't help but raised his brows, and silently said in his heart that these old people are really reckless. If you dare to let people throw you in with this level of ocean current, you are not afraid of it. Daladao was wiped away by the ocean current and drowned in the ocean current. Daddy. That's right. He used to throw giant cannonballs with his bare hands. It's normal to throw one of you. After hearing Luo Yi's words, Kong Kong seemed to think of something, and the corners of his mouth twitched. So, Uncle Kong, you too. Luo Yi's words were not finished yet, and there was a fear in his mind, forcing Luo Yi to lower his head quickly. A red and white light passed through Luo Yi's head, flying out the Kong sky opposite Luo Yi. Sparks continued to flicker in the air, which was the result of Kong's armed color and the continuous collision of the light. Luo Yi left the place instantly. Lava claws popped out of the smoke and rushed in Luo Yi's direction. Luo Yi stepped on the ground again with his right foot, and the 8 trigrams array appeared again. With Luo Yi as the center, a circle of flames appeared out of thin air and expanded rapidly. Within a few moments, a radius of several hundred meters was completely covered by flames, and the raging fire exuded unimaginable high temperatures. The magma claws collided with the flames and produced a huge explosion. Kong also punched the strange light to pieces. Ah! A sound like Akainu and strangely magnetic sounds burst into the smoke, and the smoke was broken by the terrifying sound waves. Luo Yi and Kong, who controlled the flame absorption of the explosion into a ring of fire, were attracted by the figure. Huh, is this Akainu? Luo Yi couldn't help but squinted. Standing there was a person wrapped in cooling magma. What happened to this F*K? What kind of stuff was developed by the world government? Is it so strange? Why haven't I seen it in anime? Luo Yi couldn't help but complain in his heart. Uncle Kong, do you know that stuff? Have no idea. Old stuff. This is the smell of talking. Luo Yi knows that Kong absolutely knows what happened to Akainu. After all, he is at the apex of the world government. Except for 5 elders, the biggest power is him, but he told me that he didn't know. Kill Luo Yi together. What? After hearing Akainu's words, Luo Yi turned his head and wanted to say something to Akainu, only to find that Akainu had rushed several meters in front of him. Getting faster. When this idea just came to mind, Luo Yi had already swung his flame-wrapped arms and collided with Akainu's obsidian arms dozens of times. What? At this time, Kong appeared directly behind Luo Yi, and the giant fist wrapped around the terrifying armament hockey hammered towards Luo Yi's waist. This punch cannot be easily eaten. Li Zi Huo Huan. The ring of fire that had just been compressed behind Luo Yi's control burst out, and the ring of fire flew Akainu and Kong out of the sky with terrifying heat and aura. After flying the two for several tens of meters, Luo Yi raised his right hand and suddenly retreated against the ring of fire between Akainu and Kong, and almost swayed the two wrestling with the ring of fire. The ring of fire became a flame again and gathered in Luo Yi's hands. Even the heat on the ground that was melted by Akainu magma was absorbed by Luo Yi's power. Allah, it's hot. Aokiji suddenly couldn't help but say a word in the distance. Interrupt him first. The 5.7 lava giant fist descended from the sky and hit the fireball. At the same time, Akainu's body was completely elementalized, in order to avoid the huge energy in the fireball from causing damage to himself. Kong shouted in the direction of Akainu, rushed towards Luo Yi, and punched Luo Yi's right chest with his right hand. Hot. Why is it hot? At this time, the sphere of light that reached Akainu also exudes a dazzling light. An instant burst of flame swallowed everything around, including Akainu that had turned into magma. There is no doubt that the reason lies in Luo Yi, and only the giant great fireball with a diameter of more than 100 meters in Luo Yi's hand can make them feel this way. Li Zi Nirvana Nova. The obsidian skin on Akainu had cracks under the skin, and magma burst out of the cracks, exuding terrifying heat, wrapped around Akainu's body, turning Akainu into a giant magma dog and rushing in the direction of Luo Yi. Dark Hound. The giant great fireball in Luo Yi's hand instantly compressed into a ball of light the size of a table tennis ball, exuding a dazzling light that makes it impossible to look directly at it. Whether it is Akainu who controls magma or Aokiji who controls ice, you shouldn't feel making yourself hot. Luo Yi glanced at the distance between the two of them, then turned his hand and threw the light ball of his right hand towards Akainu, and a whip kick stopped Kong, who was full of armed colors. However, an unintentional sentence made the 3 strong people present suddenly think of something, and each of them sinks and feels silently. Dozens of magma giant fists ejected from the back of the giant magma fist and smashed against the fire fist in Luo Yi's hand. Akainu's experience told him that it was dangerous. Boom. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. When the 3 people spread the sights and sounds to the fireball in the sky, they found the difference. In their perception, the temperature of the fireball surface was rising at a leaping speed, and the outermost flame alone had reached 5. The terrifying high temperature above 1000 degrees, let alone the interior, will only be higher than 5000, not only that the volume of the fireball is shrinking little by little. When a loud noise spread throughout the battlefield, it shocked the entire island even if it was connected to the warship outside the vortex.